Welcome back, Red Spotters. Yes, we're alive. It's been a while. I'm Alexis here, joined by Alexis Moreno here on the show that brings you all of the latest coming out of the world of movies and more. And look, I feel like I've been, hyping it up for weeks and weeks now that this particular month was going to be pretty stacked with a bunch of movies and TV shows. And even after weeks of doing so, I myself couldn't have been prepared for just how much there happens to be. And what I also didn't expect was the fact that Alexis and I would be otherwise indisposed for, 2 whole weeks where we wouldn't have been able to even talk about the frickin' finale for a show we had dedicated weeks and weeks of coverage to, but has already ended, it feels like it ended 10 years ago.
I
know. And now we're here, for sure tonight on this particular installment, we're going to discuss the season 1 finale of House of the Dragon, as well as our review for Black Panther: Wakanda Forever. That also happened. And so what we're hoping to do, considering, of course, that we have been somewhat lagging it lately, we are going well and above beyond what we usually do and preparing a series of episodes to be dropping, hopefully, close in proximity to each other. So for the next 2 installments, I believe, and even as I'm saying it, I'm forgetting now, but it's going to cover the new Disenchanted film, currently streaming on Disney Plus, starring Amy Adams, the sequel, the 15 or 16 year later sequel to the Enchanted, the film that came out in 2007, I believe. Wow. As well as the 5th season of The Crown. And if you have followed this show for quite some time, then you should know that us Alexises are such huge aristocrats, I guess, of, when it comes to this particular show. I mean, we talked about it a lot. We referenced it a lot when we were discussing House of the Dragon and how appropriate it seemed that The Crown would come just in time. It's been 2 fucking years since the last season, and the last season was so phenomenal. And of course,
I feel like it's filled in the gap of House of the Dragon, me missing it.
As honestly, it came in just the right time as expected. Because of course I was missing it as well, and then of course comes The Crown, and everything is whole again. And I'm currently making my way through the season, and there's so many things I want to say, but I'm going to hold my tongue until we have that episode, of course. And then even more to say on something else that we had been praising. And if that had, not been enough, the momentum on that particular show called Andor has been building and building and building. And look, again, you have to imagine, I haven't had a chance to say my thoughts on a lot of different things in weeks.
We haven't done a podcast, but we also have not talked to each other.
Yes, and so the excitement is so, just the appetite to talk about these things has just been in me for weeks now, And with Andor particularly, to say that it has gone so far and above, beyond any of our wildest expectations, of which there were none. There were no expectations for this show to begin with. We've said it so many times. But without, getting into a full-blown discussion about the context of those episodes, to say that we were blown away is a severe understatement. The show has continued to build and build and build into something that I don't think they'll ever top with anything else that doesn't involve Tony Gilroy. Wow. Just wow. The quality on Andor, dare I say, can quite match some of the stuff we would see on HBO, like A House of the Dragon or The Crown. It's that amazing. I'm
so happy that these 3 things are so...
Right. Yes. Exactly.
Together,
they really are, and they pair well to watch. One after the other. But it's even more shocking from Andor because it's a Disney Plus show, and look,
Star Wars show.
That's oh my god, you're
and
so right.
And it's like a prequel to a Star Wars movie that we don't particularly
care for.
Yes.
To be, to put it nicely, there are some things about the film that are nice, and dare I even say at moments, entertaining. Which, I mean, hey, that's a lot. Hey, that if you keep me entertained, that's mission accomplished. There are some films that, oh God. For example, one of the films I've seen recently, which, I'm just going to sprinkle a few mini reviews on some things before we get into some other stuff, which include, of course, as I mentioned earlier, the Wakanda Forever review and House of the Dragon. And just as I hope I'm accurate here. I know it's been weeks. I believe this is episode 422. Again, the last episode we had was the Halloween special with Peter, which I'm so happy we were able to arrange because I binged those classic films and it was such a fun show to record because now they're part of my DNA. I don't know about when I see a movie or a show, especially the ones that I really connect with, it just becomes a part of me. I don't know. It's a weird way of saying it. For example, the Bride of Frankenstein movie with James Whale. That's the guy that directed it. One of my favorite movies already of all time. The Bride of Frankenstein. So amazing, so beautiful. And of course, you can get more of my thoughts on that particular podcast. Anyway, so many things I've been saying. And I was alluding to things that are just like terrible. There are a list of movies this year that I'm a little bit conflicted because I ultimately suspect how I'm going to feel about them. So it feels like a waste of time to even bother with it. But I also want to, do my due diligence in a way. I years and years ago, sometimes I have a tendency to say some dumb things and things that, stick with me without even like realizing it. I know for earlier this year, I'll give you an inside joke that you might not even understand because you had to be there in the moment. But there's this thing I said so seriously in the presence of Alexis and Kyle, and they just cracked up so hard. And I swear to God, looking back on it, like, wow, it really came off that way, huh? And that wasn't even designed. It was just kind of a thing that happened. I had a Hydro flask in my hand. I was thirsty. I was drinking water. And I said something about LA while we were there for our trip in LA. I don't trust the city. I think that's what I said, but I said it in a way.
We were trying to look for parking spots.
Yes.
And we took your car. So obviously,
right.
You were very,
concerned.
Yes. Which is fine, like understandable.
Mm-hmm.
But then you just like I would say out of nowhere, but like it wasn't out of nowhere. But you just go, I don't trust this city. And like immediately me and Kyle just look at each other and start laughing. Because it sounded very like, I think Kyle afterwards was like, okay, Batman.
This is about it was like shooting a scene or something.
I mean, we are in LA, so.
Right, yeah, it felt very much topical. So, case in point, sometimes I say things and in the case of Peter, he often mischaracterizes everything anybody says because that's just who he is. But sometimes they're taken to a point where it does get under my skin, which is part of the appeal that I have as a person, I guess, with people who are close friends of mine, in which they take such delight in ribbing me a new one whenever it comes. Like, just for another example, I'll give you. Just this evening, I was with them and we went to go see Pinocchio, the Del Toro film. And I had mentioned that The Fabelmans, which is, of course, the Steven Spielberg film that I had long been excited for. Anything he does, I'm excited for. He's my favorite director, obviously. But, of course, it happens to be an ongoing thing where I've learned to not get myself overly excited about anything in their presence or anybody's presence because it often then becomes the butt of the joke. Case in point, La La Land. Which is another thing, right? Because like I remember being in that moment and thankfully, oh my God, I thank the maker, literally, that I was not anywhere near any of you when that happened because, oh my God, right up to the moment where like
signed out that night.
It was election night all over again. It was that bad. So anyway, The Fabelmans, which many reviews have come out for it. Grace Randolph, who is this particular personality that we just follow because she's so random and crazy and hilarious for so many different reasons, and of course, she has this thing where every now and then, not every now, honestly, a lot frequently lately, where she just like labels films streaming films that have no business being in a theater, which I hate so much. Like for example, my favorite film of 2021. And one of my favorite Pixar films, Luca, she labeled a streaming film, which is like, don't waste your time with. So of course, she doesn't even give the movie a review. She just like mentions it in one video that, oh yeah, I saw Fabelmans. I didn't get anything out of it. And it's a streaming movie. Great. Of course, the entire drive over to see the freaking movie, like every time Fabelmans comes up, well, it's not a streaming. It is a streaming movie. So of course, like... It's just a self-fulfilling prophecy with me, right? It's like I say things about, projects that I like, and then of course they become jokes. It's reciprocal. It's what it is. So, years and years ago, I think it was 2015, I had said something to the effect of, when I was like, I guess we were determining a movie to watch that weekend or whatever. We see a lot of movies, by the way, guys. I don't know if you've noticed. I mean, we're on this podcast, and so it's kind of a weekly thing. It's rare that it's not a weekly thing, and it's been that way for years. I had made some kind of comment to the effect of, I only watch good movies. Now, I didn't say it like that, but that's kind of what it's remembered as, because this is what happens. All the context is stripped away. Because they were talking about like watching some garbage movies, like for real, like just straight up trash. And at that point, and keep in mind, of course, through the years, we all evolve as people. So a lot of the opinions we had back then, we don't necessarily have today. That's called growing. So in those days, I didn't get much out of trash, just bad movies. And so I would like navigate around like which movies I know that doesn't look good, or I hear it's not that good, so why waste my time with it? But because of that, every now and then I do feel like it's this sense of obligation to give airtime to movies that I have a sneaking suspicion I'm not going to enjoy, but still see anyways because of this sense of obligation. So case in point, and it was a long like aside. All of which is to say, one of the films that I didn't want to watch for many, many reasons, but ended up doing so because there was nothing else to do at the time, and at the same time still instantly regret it, Halloween Ends.
Oh, God.
And I guess the quickest thing to say is it's even worse than Halloween Kills.
Oh, no.
It's even worse than Halloween Kills because you can't even laugh at it. It is such a boring nothing of a... That's the thing, it's boring. And it's not even a Halloween film it's not even a slasher until like the last half hour of the movie. I'll just give you what it is.
Well, David told me like the plot and I was like...
Well, it's stupid. But I feel like I knew that was going to be the case going into it, so that wasn't surprising. Then again, it was, because then I was like, oh, this is pretty fucking stupid. Anyway, but it really weirdly leaned into the melodrama in a way, the movie starts off with like Laurie Strode doing a voiceover and she's writing a book, and it's like, what is this, a Lifetime movie? Like, yeah, and then the movie focuses so much of its time on this new character that comes out of nowhere, and you get the point. You very easily, without even like without even seeing it, but even now seeing it, what I'm trying to say is,
don't watch it.
Don't watch it. But like, this didn't need to be a movie. This so clearly was just like wasting time. Like it just goes to show you that the idea of this being a trilogy was just stupid. Yeah. Halloween Kills, I would say, is infamous for just how dumb it is. And then Halloween Ends is just dumb and boring in different ways. Halloween 2018 was really, really good. Really, really, really good. And it should just be left at that, if we're being honest. And of course, David Gordon Green, the director of all these movies, what does he do? He is now going to do another horror reboot trilogy with The Exorcist.
Maybe the first one will be good.
Maybe. So maybe we have that to look
Yeah.
forward to. Because that, you know, Halloween 2018 was really good.
Yeah, it was really good.
And the other films, I'll never watch them again in my life. So that should tell you how it was. I also saw Ticket to Paradise with George Clooney and with Julia Roberts. And, you know, with that kind of movie, and because it is a rom-com, I got to be honest with you, I'm far more forgiving of those films because, you know, the trailer was, you know, pretty blatant with like what this was going to be. And so it's like, I guess if I'm going to be critical of it, I would have liked if there were more drafts of the script and they would punch up a lot of those jokes more so, because oftentimes it did come off as a bit not lazy, but not that creative. And what works about the film is that the two Hollywood stars that are in it, Julia and George, are having an amazing time and they have great chemistry. And the material they're working with is not great, but they make it work with, you know, through their charm. And you know what that movie was based on that trailer. You saw that movie based on that trailer. You know what? And I enjoyed myself. It's like, I'm of the mind that because we get so few of those movies lately, I'm just grateful to have a mediocre one, you know? That's just my point of view. But I thought it was entertaining and, you know, hey, that's good.
Yeah.
To be entertained. And it's also great escapism because, you know, you have the whole paradise setting and everything. So, yeah. I guess for me, I would have preferred if the script was just more, I don't know, exciting, but that's just not what they were going for.
Yeah.
This is very, very standard. So, but I would say definitely it's just worth it. It's this to me. I don't mean to, God, please. I don't mean to take a coin a term here from a person I just criticized for doing this, but this is a film that feels like a streaming movie in the sense that not that it's worthy of being seen in the big screen, but this feels like one of those films that you just like browse through on Netflix that was made for Netflix. Not by an auteur filmmaker, not by a big person like a Ryan Johnson or a Scorsese, but like just random filmmaker, insert their name X, Y, and Z, and it's there, you know? Mm-hmm. So that's what it necessarily feels like. So that would be, I would imagine a big streaming movie once it hits there. I know it's already on like digital VOD and it's done wonders. And look, when we were talking about Bros a few months back, we were looking to this movie to see how good it would do. And Ticket to Paradise hilariously outperformed Bros. Now, I guess the easy thing to say, it's not so much the gay angle, although of course I'm sure the fact that it was a pretty gay movie in that, you know, Bros was definitely hurt, you know, that film's performance in a couple of markets, more conservative ones, shall we say. It's pretty clear to see that Julia and George are still a draw. And that's why that film ultimately ended up making a lot more money at the box office. So, I wanted to close that thread, since we mentioned it back when Bros was out. I also watched the Hellraiser reboot that's currently streaming on Hulu. That's, I believe, also from Fox Searchlight. This is a franchise that I've had no previous history with. It's also a franchise that, a long-standing horror franchise that has so many movies in it. Anyway, I don't know any of them, so I watched it. I just don't. I don't. But I watched it and it was cool. It was actually like it's kind of hard to describe what happens. It's like there's this box and it stabs you and then you're marked for death, and sometimes they escape and then things happen, and it was a fun watch. It was a fun horror movie. Not necessarily scary, but it's actually pretty good. So if you want to watch that one, that's there. I unfortunately was not able, only because I feel like my mental health was not in a good place to absorb all of it, but I did see one installment of Guillermo del Toro's Cabinet of Curiosities. And from what I understand, maybe I was best off not finishing it because it was pretty morbid and gross and disgusting. Which, hey, that's ultimately what they sold the show as. But I did see the first one and it was actually pretty cool. as I expected it to be. So that was on Netflix. Couple of other things here. I also saw, and I'll discuss this more so with David because he's the Dragon Ball aficionado, but I finally saw the 2018 movie Broly. The animation was, of course, beautiful. This one, I'm curious. Maybe I'm the oddball here. Maybe I look for Dragon Ball for a little different reasons. Like the franchise itself, a lot of people mainly focus on the action choreography because it's a show and jump anime. That's what it is, right? But it's also a lot more to it sometimes, For me, the recent movie, Dragon Ball Super Hero, leaned a lot more into the comedic aspect of it, which I thought has always worked so well. And it also focused on other underutilized characters, and I think an overall better story. The action was amazing, by the way. It was a 3D animated movie, and it was one of the best I've ever seen. But I think it was a great marriage of the action and the story in Dragon Ball Super Hero. This one in Broly, I thought it had an amazing beginning because it's like all story, and it's actually like building back on some like long-standing lore, the L word here. And then a lot of people praised the action in the second half. I gotta be honest, it kind of like lost me in the second half where it's like, you know what? Maybe because I'm watching it on a laptop. It could be that. But I'm having a hard time following this and it's hurting my head sometimes. It looked amazing, but it was like, oh, okay. It got a bit repetitive for me. So that was that movie. But overall, still very strong.
Also, did you see that Ash is a Pokemon master now?
Thank you for mentioning that because I forgot, and of course I did see that. After
a million years.
I should mention it if it has not been established before. So, in addition to Dragon Ball, Pokemon has also been one of my long-standing loves. One of my original loves as far as a TV show is concerned. Not just the TV show, but then of course also, I at some point I did dabble into the games, which were highly infectious, of course. I know some people love the cards, and even to this day, Pokemon cards are a luxury.
Oh yeah.
All the kids at school have them. Again, I'm a teacher, so I see them literally like all over the place, and so they're huge. And of course, I've loved Pokemon for so many reasons. I mean, I loved all the characters, but I'll tell you, I guess a personal thing here. I've always found myself to be somewhat of, an appreciator of like the underdog, and a lot of people, and I thought it was just me growing up, but I feel like a lot as Pokemon has aged and, there's been more spaces online. There's actually a huge fan base for Team Rocket, the Team Rocket characters. And I always thought like I was the messed up person. I was the only person that actually like liked those characters more. Not just like, the point is they're idiots. Like they're not meant to be evil. They try to be, but they fail at it all the time. And I guess the weird joke of the series is they're actually kind of decent people. Mm-hmm. And the show takes some times every now and then to show you and remind you of that. But I've always kind of like found a strange kinship with them, only because like they were always like presented as outsiders, and they found their own little group. And for much of my life in those years, again, we're talking about like 2000. No, we're talking about like from 99 to like 2005 or 6 or whatever. That's like, those are the years where I was really. I know, right? I know. Those are from what I'm shooting, right? For like an estimate here. Mm-hmm. But the fact is I didn't have many friends when I was a young boy, besides like family. Mm-hmm. So maybe that's one of the first indicators that I like identified myself as an outsider, was that I was like so like connecting with like this trio of characters. So it was them. Of course, I also loved Ash, Misty, and Brock, and of course all the other companions that came along the way. I actually remember watching that show all the way fuck. I'm trying to remember now. Because there are like 20 something seasons now. I remember watching, and I know a lot of people like fell off the show maybe after the first or second season. Maybe even after like the third or fourth.
I love the first season, but that was the only thing that I saw. Yeah. And the movie. I mean, I stopped until the first movie.
Oh yeah, but I mean that's golden era. Yeah, that's beautiful stuff. I actually watched all the way until season 13. It's a long ass time, but there were like a couple of like breaks in between. And then also some like growing pains. For me personally, I think the first 8 seasons were something special because that was the 4 kids the dubbing. And for those who are not aware, when production resumed in 2000, in the 9th season, the Pokemon Company did not want to renew with 4 kids animation for whatever reason. So like they had to basically recast the entire show. There were new voice actors that came with it, and I remember in real time just like being kind of crushed because, oh man.
It was jarring. Like the...
Ooh. Yeah. Man, wasn't it? So, it was so jarring. And again, I had watched every episode of the show religiously so before the fact. And even still, it took I think a good season or 2 for me to adjust, but I adjusted to it. And I kept watching it and it was still engaging for the most part, but I think the last time I watched it was the Sinnoh region, which was I believe the Diamond and Pearl era. Those are the games, by the way, for those who are not aware. And that's where I kind of just like jumped off. But some of my favorite characters in all of media will always be Jesse, James, Meowth, and Wobbuffet. I don't know what it is about those particular characters that I've always just had I was drawn to. But you were speaking about Ash. And the thing is, for 20-something seasons, the thing is, he's in a Pokemon League, but you already kind of figured out what the formula is. He'll always, like, be just shy of, like, achieving that actual goal. And because it's been over 2 decades, you've come, accustomed to thinking, oh, that's just never going to happen then. But the show is still going. But good God, we're living in an age of I don't know, maybe it's too overwhelming to say an age of miracles, but there've been some small miracles that have happened. The Democratic Party did not get slaughtered a few weeks ago in America. Fascism didn't completely take over. And a lot of Donald Trump's candidates went down in flames. Who would have thunk it? And then Ash wins the Pokemon League? My question was, okay, well, where does the show go from there?
Yeah.
Like, are they still going to keep it? I mean, they have to keep it going. Like,
it's
Pokemon is Pokemon.
Yeah. I've never known Pokemon to like go down in popularity.
Never. If anything, it gets more popular every year. And like, again, I'm a 27-year-old man, and
this has been going on our whole lives.
Our whole lives. Our whole lives. Which is why it feels kind of special to mention it, for us. Like, because we were there at the very beginning of it. We were there, as the prime audience thinking like, oh man, are we ever going to see this happen? And then it happens. We're almost 3 decades old. I mean, I don't know what to say other than congratulations, Ash Ketchum. It took 27 years, I guess, or I don't know how many years it was, but you remain 10 years old somehow. But you finally won the Pokemon League, and Pikachu, of course, and whatever Pokemon he had on his roster. There should be a case study, I want to say, as to how it is that anime in particular has been able to find longevity, but then also maintain a certain stability and quality. Mm-hmm. That isn't to say, of course, that Pokemon is as good now as it was then. But then again, I stumbled across some video essays a few months ago, and there are people who swear, certain eras were actually superior to the original. I'm like, oh, okay, well, That's their opinion, right? That's their opinion, and they're perfectly entitled to it. I can't speak to it because I only watched the first 13 years. But again, some people who are like, you watched 13 fucking years of that show? Like, yeah.
People watch 13 seasons of Supernatural. Yeah. I mean, okay.
Or
people
25
watch 10 years
seasons of Grey's
Family.
Anatomy.
Exactly. 10 years of Friends. I mean, come on.
60 years of The Doctor. Yeah, there's a whole bunch of stuff, right? But like, it's not just. I mean, One Piece just had a film out in theaters that did
over
very well.
They're over 1,000 episodes, I believe.
The show is still going.
Yeah.
And of course, had a movie. Dragon Ball just had a movie out in theaters just a few months back.
Dragon Ball, I feel like it's been there since Pokemon 2. I'm a Sailor Moon girly myself. That did stop for a while, but they brought it back.
I actually saw one of my students earlier this week drawing Sailor Moon.
I love Sailor Moon. That was my Dragon Ball Pokemon.
Dragon Ball has been a thing since at least, I want to say, 1989.
God damn.
Yeah. Because I think a lot of these have, like, there were mangas first, and then, of course, came the anime. Wow. Yeah. Congratulations, Ash Ketchum. Thank you for bringing that up. I don't know. There's been a lot of things that have happened in the news, so it's like, of course, that some things come and go, obviously. I did want to mention, speaking of animation, Tales of the Jedi.
I've not seen it yet, but I will see it. So maybe we can talk about it during Andor.
Sure. I will say, there are moments of it that are quite good. I feel, though, the big negative is that the stories are too good for them being presented as shorts. That's the problem. Because you see them, and then they're over, and you're like...
Really? Yeah.
You could have done more with this. And I'm going to wait for you to see it, but there's one episode which, if you're looking at it without thinking too much, but maybe it's just my brain. Maybe most people won't catch onto this, but I know this is the reason why it exists. But it's a nice episode. You get to see Anakin and Ahsoka again. And it's a nice episode where, like, we see them at 3 different stages in the Clone War when she's a Padawan. And then it ends, actually. You see that episode ends with a scene at the moment where Rex and Ahsoka are on the Venator Republic ship before it goes down at the end of the Siege of Mandalore arc. I'm happy to see more scenes with them, but it feels like the only reason that episode exists is to squash a fan complaint.
Oh, no. Which, okay, to be fair, like, a lot of Star Wars animation is used to fill in the gaps and has been doing that, you know? It's the reason why I kind of fell in love with Star Wars, animation Star Wars. But it's upsetting that it doesn't get more like recognition, I guess. Or like people, I don't know, at least I feel like with Star Wars fans, they're kind of like they feel like they're gonna be judged by saying that they love Star Wars animation or that that's like their favorite thing. When no, like that's one of the best things there is about Star Wars. But whatever.
I feel like there are hardcore Star Wars fans that do appreciate the animation and love it so, and would think. I feel like, look, you and I look at Star Wars and Lucasfilm Animation as some of the best Star Wars that's ever been around. However, we also feel the same way about Andor and Last Jedi. And a lot of people who agree with us with the animation do not agree with us when it comes to Last Jedi or Andor or some other things. So it's kind of a weird cross-section. But I think what you were speaking to is a lot of the mainstream people who maybe only delve into the live-action material, which is the shows or the movies, and don't watch the animation. For me, as a big Star Wars fan, you are missing so much.
Oh, yeah.
and I think some superior content.
Especially now with the way that they're dealing with the Mandalorian and Boba Fett and all that stuff. Like, you miss so much.
Yes. But at the same time, though, while it is amazing and while I love and forever will appreciate Dave Filoni and the stories that he has contributed to Lucasfilm and the mythos of Star Wars, it has annoyed me in recent years that people take his particular stuff and prop it up as the only viable alternative to George Lucas's vision in the universe and use his work to kind of poo-poo everything else around it, including Rian Johnson's work in The Last Jedi, or even Tony Gilroy's work in Andor. I want to, since we're on the topic of Star Wars here, there was this hilarious and also hideous at the same time clip that was released or has been making the rounds by two infamous, shall we say, personalities in the Star Wars space on YouTube. I believe one of them is Mike Zero and the other one is Star Wars Theory. And if you know those individuals and their personalities, then you'll know where this is going. But it's kind of a long clip, but I want to play it because I mainly just want to see Alexis's reaction to it. But where it goes, I would say proves me right what I've been saying about the vapidness of Star Wars fans, okay? So I would ask you to bear with me as I play this clip.
Star Wars needs to be, Andor is everything Star Wars needs to be. This is the best Star Wars we've had. What the fuck are you guys smoking? Right? What? What? I don't know, man. It feels like to me it's like one of those situations where it's like, are the sum of all the parts equal to the whole? Because there's a lot of stuff that's like individually mad decent in Andor, right? Like the acting, the set pieces, you know, some of the sound design, you know, the performances I think are really good. The people are handing in a really good performance. But it's all put together in such a way that I just think is so completely boring. Like, I don't understand where some people say, like, this is, like, on the level of House of the Dragon, or this is, like, crazy good television, the best that Star Wars has ever been. Like, I legitimately don't see it. And I don't know, man. It kind of seems like from this other thing with them, like, putting it out on television or whatever. Like,
we haven't talked about that. People don't know.
Yeah. But it feels like Lucasfilm is maybe aghast and confused, because they're very confident in this thing. I mean, they're doing 2 seasons right away without seeing how this one performed. And now, like, well into it with 2 left, they're probably like, damn, like, this is really just not hitting for us. Like, what's going on there?
Our business guy.
Yeah.
He's a creative genius.
Yep.
You know? I mean, the guy created Star Wars. Like, imagine that from scratch.
Yeah.
All the characters, all the everything.
Yeah.
It's like Lord of the Rings kind of thing, or Harry Potter. You know, I mean, I think if Lucasfilm wants to go forwards and create more shows, I think it would be really beneficial if they created a General Grievous show. I think that would do absolutely amazing. They could make it animated if they wanted to, but I think even live action would hit. You know,
honestly, even Grievous in sort of like the style of Andor, being like just more gritty and really like focusing on his like career and like what brought him to that. Like, I could absolutely see that. You know, there's like a built-in draw to that. I think
absolutely, yeah, I think so too. I mean, there's so much of a cool backstory as Grievous and how he was this articles that are so.
Okay, so General Grievous's backstory is more interesting than the backstory to the rebellion, to Star Wars. What? And then to make it the exact same. Okay. Didn't you just say it was boring?
Yes, he did just say it was boring, but then it wrapped back around to basically admitting, oh, it's just not that thing, you know. Oh, okay.
Jeez.
I mean, there was one thing that I felt like was a decent point, and that is Lucasfilm maybe perhaps are surprised that this show is just not hitting as well as it should be.
Look at what they gave us. Look at what they gave us.
Yes.
And that's what people expect now.
And look at the people who I just played that they were talking. A lot of Star Wars fans are that. They've been trained to expect just that. They've been trained to expect the Jon Favreau flavor of Star Wars.
We got a whole new trilogy based on that. Except obviously the one exception. But oh no. It's so annoying. It's so annoying.
By the way, I wouldn't be opposed to a animated General Grievous movie on Disney Plus. Why? Because that's a cool character. There's a backstory there for sure. And I wouldn't be opposed to it. But like the idea of a live action gritty General Grievous show in the style of Andor is so laughable. I'm sorry, but like, can you just imagine that with his fucking voice coming in there and like
Bane? I will say, like, I understand people saying that the show is boring because it was a little hard to get through those first 3 episodes.
I will, yes, the first 3.
Once it hits.
Oh,
jeez. And I do think that it's in the level of House of the Dragon and The Crown because every conversation, everything that happens is so important to the story, which is
powerful too.
Exactly, which is how these other 2 shows are. Like, if you miss something, you kind of miss a big thing.
Yes.
And I don't know.
It's I would say top tier television because it is. It just is. It's shot that way. It's written that way. It's directed that way.
And I love how they're like, it has great this, it has great that, it has great this, but it's boring. Oh. Please explain.
It's boring? Andor is some of the most riveting Star Wars content ever created.
We need. It's why Star Wars was made, to tell this type of story.
Let's just be real here. I mean, like, the ethos of so far Andor season 1 is the only way to get rid of fascism is through armed rebellion, right? And it's proving that case. And maybe that's just too much of a political message, but like I guess for me, why it's connecting so much is because I myself, and not just me, but a lot of people my age, particularly leading up to these midterm elections, felt the country giving way to fascism in free fall. The alt-right has taken over complete control of the Republican Party, regardless of the fact of whether the corporate media wants to acknowledge that or not. It's what it is. And again, the next Republican primary is going to be between 2 fascists, Donald Trump or Ron DeSantis. And they very well could be the next president. And that's the ball game. Mm-hmm. And that's bad. Mm-hmm. And so maybe perhaps why I'm so like connected to the story of the rebellion in a way that I've never really have been in Star Wars is because I myself just feel I mourn, I cry for, and I guess this sounds a bit dramatic, but I love my country. I love the idea of what America should be. Not that it's ever been.
We're connecting to it in a way that we shouldn't.
It's bad,
but it's also like, okay, I don't know. Maybe it's a little cheesy, but like it does give you a little bit of hope.
Yes, you know? that's the reason for it. Like the midterms gave us hope that maybe we're not there yet. Maybe we're not completely in collapse, but we still have to keep working on it to make sure we're not, pushing to the edge of that cliff. Mm-hmm. And with Andor, it is such a, obstructed showcase for what a rebellion actually looks like. And it really, I think, hones down to one incredible moment. I feel so strongly that it is a moment for the ages as far as television is concerned, and in all of Star Wars. The casting on this show overall has been great, but was it a stroke of brilliance to cast Stellan Skarsgård as Luthen? And that moment, oh my God, that monologue better be Emmy nominated for Best Screenplay or Best Writing. That was everything. That was, and you know what's, I didn't view it as such until some people kind of like brought it up. But if you think about Luthen, he's kind of the Palpatine for the rebellion. He's savvy, but he's also just brutal, cutthroat, and vicious when he needs to be. And also clever enough that he's been setting all these things up. And yeah, I mean,
yeah,
you see the reaction.
That scene actually brought me back to when we saw The Last Jedi. And I know a lot of people don't like the casino scene, but that line.
Well, can we be real? We should probably say a lot of Star Wars fans, because to say that, I just don't want to care. I know you're talking about one moment, which is Canto Bight, right? But there's like this misconception that I hate to like propagate, which is, oh, most people don't like Last Jedi. No, that's not true. Did you see how much money it made? Do you see how the reviews for that film, how highly regarded it remains to be? But there is a certain, like, some hardcore Star Wars fans were so loud about it that it's become the popular opinion that sequel movies are all trash. And Last Jedi is a special kind of trash. And I just, no. But we do acknowledge that that's what it is. And you're right. With Canto Bight, people seemingly took offense to the idea that casinos exist in Star Wars.
But one of the reasons why I love that movie, which is, there's many, many reasons, but this line always stuck with me, or this scene always stuck with me. I don't know. I thought it was just like so interesting and so powerful in this world that they live in, which is, I always forget the guy's name.
DJ? El Benicio del Toro.
Yes. When he shows them in the ship that the person who owns the ship is making weapons for the rebellion and for the Empire, or whatever the other one's
First Order.
Yes. And that monologue kind of brought me back to that scene, because it's like, I don't know, I guess we'll talk about it more. I can't really go into detail, but I don't know. I love this show. It's so good.
Yes. Speaking of Star Wars, I cannot say enough nice things about the 6-part documentary series Light and Magic on Disney Plus, which is the origins of the visual effects company Industrial Light and Magic, perhaps the original one. It is Industrial Light and Magic, a company that was created by George Lucas in the time of the making of the original Star Wars film. If it weren't for that, we wouldn't have a Star Wars movie. We wouldn't have anything. When it comes to special effects or visual effects, as we know them to be in this day and age. For as much as it is about, I just want to be clear. It's not slavishly devoted to this idea of industrial light and magic. It's about the people who built that house. It's about those individual creatives who had, who were guided by passion in their lives and got to live their dreams. And for as much as there is history about the making of the original Star Wars movies, and for a lot of the technical stuff, with how this thing is made through the decades from the late 1970s to the late 2010s, it is really, I think, where this, and I think there's a lot of shining moments of it. But what I would urge you, Alexis, to go see it. I urge any person who is a fan of how movies are made and loves documentary filmmaking to go watch this, because it is incredibly riveting. Honestly, could not, look away with how much I was just like, oh man, this is so cool. You feel like you're being transported back in time, and you're living out those days with those guys, and girls, as it goes through the ages of being there. And it for me, I'm just so attracted to creative people like that, because it just feels like we're living in an era where, so many talented and creative young people or even older people are just like so thrown away. We're living in an era of big business where you have like the Amazons, you have the Disneys, you have the fucking Elon Musk now, who just like throw people away and wholesale firings where there's no reason for it to be. I hate that we live in this fucking system where like these fucking big companies who have all the money in the world, all the money they'll ever need, are deemed, or like Netflix earlier this year was deemed as this big failure, because even though it's like it has billions of dollars, it's not growing as much as it should be. And that kind of like, model is so fucking destructive, I personally feel. And so obscene, because when Bob Chapek says that, oh, we're in crisis mode, it to me is just a fucking excuse to cut further back on costs, like fucking fire people, all the while you're great. Yeah. A lot of the people, you have the fucking money. Yeah. And let's not, ignore the fact that we're living in an era of inflation. Why are we living in an era of inflation? Oh, because the fucking, big businesses threw so much money out there and they kind of made this happen. And guess what? They're not feeling inflation. They're loving this. They're making, and I know I'm just like I'm just like rolling down a hill of all these other issues, but like when you watch Light and Magic, you're reminded of a time when a company like Industrial Light and Magic used to be a family and used to cherish people, and it wasn't so fucking like suffocated in, cold capitalism. It meant fucking something to be a human being, and you were treated as such. And when you see, Industrial Light and Magic, Light and Magic, the series, there are so many moving stories that are so human. Like, for example, one of the people that worked on Star Wars, Joe Johnston, who is now a filmmaker, he made Jumanji, Captain America: The First Avenger, and other films like The Rocketeer. Before he was a filmmaker, he was, he designed the Millennium Falcon. He designed Boba Fett. He was there in the trenches in the original movie. And guess what? He would never have been a filmmaker. And Joe Johnston says this in the documentary. If it wasn't for the fact that he got so burnt out and he told George, look, I can't do this anymore. I'm so tired. And George says to him, have you ever thought about being, going to film school? And George paid for his tuition to go to film school. And because of that kindness and that, that promise that he saw in him, I have one of my favorite movies of all time, Captain America: The First Avenger. And all the other wonderful works, Honey, I Shrunk the Kids, that he was able to do. And it goes further. There was even a story that broke my heart where this girl, her dream was to work at ILM. And she had, her, I think, fiance didn't want to move with her. And so she had to leave him.
She said, fuck
to
it.
fulfill. Yeah. There's even one of the guys that was in charge of all the matte paintings for the original Star Wars films. Mm-hmm. He had a background. He had a direct connection to Walt Disney. Interestingly enough. So there's like a lot of like wonderful like stories here that I feel make this worthwhile. The interviews were conducted and directed by Lawrence Kasdan. If you know Lawrence Kasdan, he wrote the screenplay for Empire Strikes Back, Return of the Jedi, The Force Awakens, and Solo: A Star Wars Story. And I believe Lawrence Kasdan also did screenplay work for some of the Indiana Jones films. So this is a filmmaker we're talking about here with Larry Kasdan. And I hope people who are listening take the time to go see this, because one of my favorite documentaries of all time is Empire of Dreams, which is the making of the Star Wars original trilogy. The first 2 episodes will be a lot of review, but and you know what it also is? It doesn't shy away from some brutal truths that happen. There are some people like John Dykstra, who is very essential in the beginnings of ILM, but he wasn't invited back. And there's some drama that happened there. So, to me, it's even more like Imagineering story is great, documentary, but sometimes you felt the hand of the mouse. Like we gotta like smooth some of this over. Here, you don't feel any of that. I think so. It's a lot more, I guess, real in that sense. But to me, some of the best stuff right now you'll see is light and magic. So,
also to get you even more fired up here, did you hear about the lovely Mr. Chapek saying that animation is just for kids?
Yeah. It's no surprising. No less surprising, I should say. Mr. Chapek is one of the more uniquely out of touch people, I would say, to ever run a company of this size. And I feel like we're living in an era of out of touch people. I mean, lest we forget to mention, Elon Musk is a name that should be.
Have I told you about my last Disney experience?
You haven't, but I want to finish this thought. Elon Musk is a name that should be dragged through the mud. A complete fucking imbecile to like throw away billions of dollars for something he thought he wanted for a few weeks, then he changed his mind, then he was forced to buy, and then has just subsequently destroyed completely to the ground. This should tell people, just because you're rich doesn't mean you're smart. And we need to like move away from those days, because another rant I'm going to go on is the generation before us, or those generations before us, we're millennials or Zoomers, whatever. But the older millennials and certainly the younger Gen Xers and the boomers, I want to say, not Zoomers. They grew up with this like idea of, if you're articulate, you're smart. Mm-hmm. No, no, don't believe that. And this idea that if you're rich, well, you deserve to be there.
Yeah.
Because obviously you did something right. No. They were propagandized to death, weren't they? That generation. Jesus Christ. Anyway, you were saying, Alexis, about Bob Chapek?
My Disney trip.
Oh no, yes, the Disney. Yes, go ahead. Oh.
Yeah, no.
It's now coming back to me. You see, this is how far so much we haven't talked. I mean, I was in Mexico City. You were fucking in Disneyland. That's right. All these things happened. Although it seems like you had maybe the worst time.
Oh my God. Okay, to be fair, I still loved it. But I have never. I guess, we have a Disney podcast, and there's a reason why we haven't gone back. Because there's... it's not... It doesn't feel the same anymore. And this last trip kind of made me realize that. And, more so. And it made me kind of really sad.
I mean, look, let's be real here. You, me, and Kyle, not to, be punny here, even though because the movie is out, we're a little bit disenchanted with Disney at the moment. Not so much so that we're no longer fans of Disney or the park itself, but I feel like we kind of are with a lot of Disney fans right now, where it's just a
lot of Disney fans are feeling this way, and it says something
depressed.
It says something when the people that have been in obviously they call them Disney adults, but the people that are passionate about not the company, but the artistry of the company and all this stuff.
Yes.
When they start saying, it's not the same, I feel like there's a reason for it. Yeah. And, well, I guess I'll go into it. But basically, keep in mind that we went with somebody who has never gone to Disneyland, let alone gone to any theme park, ever. This person was, over 20 years old. So obviously, I tend to go with people who's like it's their first time going to Disney, so I kind of, you know, usually have a plan, or like I'll give them options and I'll have them like decide. Like I really don't care what we do as long as like they're happy, because I go all the time, so it's like whatever. Every ride that we tried to get on closed. And I'm not kidding when I say every single ride.
Can you name them real quick?
So we went on Splash
Or
Mountain.
you tried to get on?
Yes, we went on Splash Mountain. That was the first ride. That one was fine. Although the same thing happened to my friend that happened to me. And this is the first ride. Yeah. Yeah.
And just to be clear here, what happened to you, you got waterboarded.
Yes.
On Splash Mountain. Again, if you want to listen to that go to the Fantasy Fair podcast, and we have like 2 episodes, like 4 hours long, I want to say, all together, of our trip from 2021. But really quickly, the last ride of that particular day was Splash Mountain, and all of us we basically went for a swim. All of us were drenched from head to toe, and Alexis particularly, while wearing her mask, because at that point you had to wear the masks on the actual attractions, was waterboarded.
So yeah, that was fun.
But that was the end of the day. For her, it was the beginning of the day. You didn't warn her to have anything on, or like to change her shoes?
I thought it was a one-time thing. Apparently it's not.
That's the second time you made a mistake on Splash Mountain in recent years.
So yeah, we got on that one. It's fine. We wanted to go on Rise of the Resistance because nobody had gone on it except me. So we go on. It's a like over 100-minute wait. We're all in the mindset of like, okay, we're gonna wait this long. Oh, also we tried the Genie Plus thing. Yeah, I hate it. Yeah. And so we decide to wait. We literally get to...
To be clear, Genie Plus is not making any of this easier. It makes it so much harder.
No. Yeah. I saw a picture of Indiana Jones. The wait line was like 90 minutes. The line wasn't even outside. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
That's weird.
Yeah. Anyways, to go back to this. We get to the spot. The door, like we're right in front of the door where we have to go into the room with Ray and BB-8. Like, the door is in front of our faces. You know, we're waiting for that door to open. We've waited about an hour and a half, maybe 2 hours. It breaks down. I obviously know that, you know, there's times when rides break down, blah, blah, blah. That's fine. We decide to wait because we're literally, you know, that door opens and we're right there. They kick us out. They gave us a fast pass to go back because we, again, we had the Genie Plus thing, so we were like, okay, whatever. They put it on our phones, by the way, because that's how they do it now. We decided we're gonna go back later. It'll be like the last ride, blah, blah. Plus that ride closes at 9. I don't know why, but so we're like, we'll just do it later, whatever. We had fast passes for the Matterhorn. We go to the Matterhorn. It's broken. They give us another fast pass. We go over to Haunted Mansion. We were able to ride on that one. At that point, we're like hungry. We've been waiting in line for forever. We go get food.
Exhausted, dehydrated.
We get a fast pass to what's it called? Big Thunder. It's broken. At this point, we have 2 fast passes because we haven't been able to get on.
We haven't been able to use them.
Exactly. I say let's use it for obviously Rise of the Resistance and Indiana Jones, because Indiana Jones is long. They say okay. We go back to Star Wars. It's a 60-minute wait. We still have those two passes. So I suggest using the passes for Indiana Jones and Space Mountain. And they're like, yeah, that's fine. Let's wait in line. We wait in line. The same thing happens again. I was like, what the fuck? Indiana Jones, broken. We go to Space Mountain, our passes don't work. And this is the first time. Keep in mind, I go to Disneyland a lot. When I say a lot, I mean a lot. This is the first time that I've experienced a cast member being so rude. What happened? We go to Space Mountain. I scan my pass and it works. Like it goes green. The other person tries to scan her pass and it's not working. And she has the rest of the people's passes on her phone. And they don't work. And I'm literally like halfway to the ride. And I'm like, where's everybody at? So I go back. And the guy's like, it's not working. Like, it's not working. You can't use it. She's looking at the rides that we can use it for. First of all, I say, how could she not use it? Like, it's the same pass. We got it because Rise of the Resistance broke down because we were about to get on the ride. Mm-hmm. And we waited so long. And he's like, I don't know. It's not working. And she's looking on the list. No. She's looking on the list of the Fast... Because in the Fast Pass, it gives you a list of rides you can't get on. That ride was not on there. And she's like, it's not working. Like, basically being like, can you help me? Because it's not scanning. He's like, I don't know. You guys can't use it. You guys can't get on. And she's like, at this point, we're like mad. Because he's literally like not doing anything. Like,
he doesn't want you there in his face. He wants you to get the fuck away.
Yeah. And it's like, it's not our fault. Like, the pass is good, obviously, because mine's scanned. Like, that doesn't make any sense. So he's not helping at all. So my friend's like, let's just wait in line. Like, whatever. We've been waiting this whole time. And then he turns to me and he's like, it's a 60-minute wait. Please. Oh my God.
After a day where you have been waiting in line after line after line, and the attractions have been breaking down left and right, and after this particular cast member doesn't even try to figure out what is wrong with the passes you were given, and has already shown contempt with you even bringing up the issue to his face, and is basically asking you to get the fuck away from him, as you're turning away, he then goes out of his way to add an additional unnecessary comment that pretty much like, oh my God, I can't believe it.
Right?
This person was basically saying, it's a 60-minute wait. Like, yeah, good luck with that, basically. Like
if you're not going to help, don't make...
It's the equivalent of, like...
comments that are not going to help the situation.
He might as well have said, like, don't let the door hit you on the way out.
Wild. It was... I felt so bad. Like...
I would, too.
It was 4 of us. The other 3 girls literally were like, this has never happened before. I don't know what's going on. We felt so bad for the girl that had never been there because it's her first time.
It's a horror show, Alexis. You're describing a horror show.
So bad. And that it doesn't stop there. That was the end of the day, the first day. The second day, the same thing happened. We were at DCA and the same thing happened.
Are you kidding me?
We were able to get on Guardians, but we tried to get on the freaking Little Mermaid. First of all, the Little Mermaid did not go down from 30 to 40 minutes because of those fucking Genie Plus passes.
Little Mermaid has Genie Plus?
Yes.
What?
Yes.
No,
all of the
you're
rides
kidding.
have fast passes now.
Oh no.
It was so bad. We tried to get on Spider-Man ride, which, by the way, I hate it. It's horrible. It's stupid. We waited like almost like 2.5 hours.
Was Tom Holland there at least?
Yes. We waited like almost 2.5 hours because the ride broke down and they didn't say anything.
Wait, what ride broke down?
The Spider-Man ride.
You waited 2.5 hours?
My friend's a really big Spider-Man fan, so she wanted to get on.
Alexis, couldn't you have told her what it was going to be and like save yourself some time?
I don't think she cared. Yeah.
Well, what did she think of the ride?
It was... Oh, her? Oh, she loved it.
Okay.
But again, she's a big Spider-Man fan. I hated it. It was so stupid. But yeah, like nobody said anything.
You're a big Spider-Man fan too. That wasn't the point. Clearly, it was the quality of the attraction, and it's like it seemed like a discount Toy Story Midway Mania to me.
Yeah.
At best.
But yeah, it was bad. Incredicoaster broke down.
Oh God.
Yeah, it was so bad. But I did get to experience Oogie Boogie Bash for the first time, and once that started, everything just kind of made up for everything else.
I mean, it better had, right? Wow.
Yeah.
What a disaster.
Yeah. It just...
2 days.
I don't know. Again, and I was talking to this about one of my old coworkers that worked at the Disney store with me, that after we came back from COVID, it was just not the same. And you can tell by like the things that they were doing at the stores. Even if we were open and stuff, there was just a lot of things that, I don't know. The sense of like, before COVID, there was a big like sense of community, and that was my second store. You know, I had worked at another Disney store previously, and you can still feel that back then. But once we came back, I don't know, it felt icky a little bit. And this trip, I don't know, it just sucked.
I mean, clearly it sucked and it left a bad taste in your mouth, and it just makes you...
And it wasn't like the rides breaking down. It wasn't that. Like, I fully understand, you know, rides breaking down and stuff, and I don't mind it. But the fact that like every ride we tried to get on, and then and it wasn't just that cast member. It was like other cast members that, you know, we would hear talking and stuff like that. It just...
Oh, really?
Yeah, it wasn't... I don't know. Just like... Maybe it's the people that they hire. I don't know. I don't know what it is. Maybe the training thing is different. And we also have to like realize that a lot of the people that they let go are people that had been working there for years. Like, that was their life. And these are new people, you know? And they're gonna keep doing that, apparently. So...
I mean, this is all indicative of something that I kind of like... I don't know if it was a year ago or 2 years ago that I said, but I thought pretty strongly, and I think this is just, I feel, emblematic of the era that is the Bob Chapek era. And I said to you guys, either it was last year or the year before in Fantasy Fair, that this decade will be a decade of decline for the Disney name.
Mm-hmm.
I could smell it a mile away with that man. And the only people who are happy with this, I would say, the donors, the board of directors, and anybody who owns stock in Disney, maybe.
But it's just like, it's so weird to me, because like, why would you, like, that was to me, I think that was the appeal to Disney, right? That it was such a family thing. Like, that was their big thing. And bringing magic or whatever. Why are you okay with letting go of that? That's the thing that brings you money.
Because it's not something that Bob Chapek values. It's not something he feels is necessary to spend money on. He feels he's betting the bank that Disney fans are going to come back no matter what. And you get the sense that he's just trying to make the experience as abysmal as he possibly can. And until people refuse to pay the money, by the way, robbing them blind, because like the services, shall we say, the programs, the availability of things that you used to are no longer available to people.
I paid $500 for those 2 days.
Yeah, you could usually, with all that you did, you probably would have paid half price, but that's just how it is now. Like, he's just overcharging for everything and offering so much less. Yeah, it's terrible. And he just had his contract renewed. So it's like, okay. Real quick, some news while we're here. Doctor Who is now with Disney. More on that when David comes back. There was a new Ant-Man trailer. I don't care. I didn't see it online. I saw it as I was forced to see it in front of the Black Panther movie. Okay. I don't care. I guess the one thing that's interesting is, and David pointed this out, the rings that Kang has in those movies look like the 10 rings, and the bangle rings that Miss Marvel had on her show. Fuck, is this getting convoluted if that's true? But that's so stupid, but it's what it is. Black Panther came and went. That was funny. Because nobody cared, and the reviews were the most middling reviews I'd ever seen in my life. I think Kyle told me tonight that his parents went on a date night, and they saw that movie, and they called it the most boring piece of shit they ever saw in their lives. And I think one of my favorite critics from across the pond, his name is Mark Kermode. Sometimes I play his clips here on the show, and I just find him entertaining for some of his reactions, and it can be quite extreme. Not that I agree with him a lot. He had a rather extreme reaction to Love and Thunder, a film that I happen to quite love, as a matter of fact, but he was just like detested. But his reaction to Black Adam was so hilarious.
You said
like,
Black Panther.
No, I said Black Adam. No, I said Black Adam.
I don't think you did.
I said Black Adam. His reaction to Black Adam.
Wait.
Fuck. I did not say Black Panther. It's his reaction to Black Adam.
Parents. Kyle's parents.
Black Adam.
Okay. I think you said Black Panther.
No! I was talking about Black Adam. Did I say Black Panther?
I don't know. I was thinking of Black Panther. Also, can we, when we went to go see Black Panther, there was these 3 girls in front of us.
Oh my god.
Who got denied access to the movie because they bought Black Adam tickets instead of Black Panther. They literally went, who the fuck is Black Adam?
That, for real, that happened?
Yes. Like, the person taking the tickets was like, this is Black Adam.
That's I don't know what to say other than that. That's pretty fucking funny. No, yeah. What I was saying anyway with the whole Black Adam situation is, I believe this is the review. Let me play it here.
Very big. It's very noisy. No shot lasts more than, a quinti-second. Everything blows up all the time. And I understand, and I have always said this. There comes a point when you lose patience with something and you think, okay, I should probably retire. And I did think watching Black Adam, maybe it's me, but this is just a bunch of stuff now. And I don't care about any of it.
Yeah, that's just an example of like the reaction this movie got. And yeah, the trailers were some of the most horrendous trailers I've ever seen in my life. I'm not kidding you not. Every time a theater played a Black Adam trailer, I just looked away from the screen because I was just like bored out of my mind. And it's hilarious to me that they were amping up like the 3-second cameo of Henry Cavill as Superman, who, like, I get to an extent why people are so devoted to him. I personally don't care about his Superman, but hey, people love it, right? But it's just so funny that people who enlist themselves to like do these big DC projects end up getting thrown under the bus or like hurt in some way. It's like The Rock like threw so much of his like star power into Black Adam, and I just think he got embarrassed because I don't think anybody particularly likes the movie. The fact that Warner Brothers was like selling the film on the notion that you can get a 3-second cameo of Henry Cavill at the very end of the movie, and it's also not really doing that well. Like, talk about. Eternals didn't do great at the box office. It did okay. I mean, $400 million, but for a Marvel film, not the best. And if Eternals is considered to be one of the biggest like Marvel Studios flops, Black Adam's not going to get anywhere near Eternals' box office haul. Also, evidently he was embarrassed, Dwayne Johnson, because he was like aiming for a power grab, to have more creative control with like his DC projects. And then the week after they announced that James Gunn is in charge of DC, movies going forward. So that's funny. So yeah, Black Adam, a nothing movie. You're never going to see a sequel. Well, maybe you'll see a Black Adam versus, but like not a sequel to like that story.
Well,
like,
he's like
cared.
Shazam's villain. That's why I was always confused. Why? Why?
Because The Rock wanted to play him, and The Rock only plays one kind of character. That's your answer to it.
But Shazam's
James
coming
Gunn.
out. Ooh.
Yeah, James. Yeah, next year. But yeah, it is. James Gunn being head of DC is so exciting. But then also kind of worrisome because I don't want him to fall on a sword. But it always feels like people who, again, enlist themselves to like be big DC executives end up just like falling by the wayside under the weight of like the burden that is with Warner Brothers, But
I think he can stand his ground.
I think he can.
Yeah.
I'm worried, I don't want to get my hopes up too high, but I am excited for the projects. Like I don't know if he himself planned to direct it, but I know he's been working on a Harley Quinn project with Margot Robbie. Let's do it, So, and other stuff here and there. So, I mean, I think James Gunn's the perfect person, and it's so surprising to see somebody like him take up an executive position. Like he's a full on like creative. Like James Gunn's a fucking amazing creative. And for him to devote his time to DC, like, wow. Are you happy now, Alan Horn, for firing James Gunn all those years ago? Which, from what I understand, I think both Alan Horn and Bob Iger these days are like advising Warner Brothers or something.
Funny.
They're the former like number 1 and 2s of the Walt Disney Company. It's like, doesn't that tell you what a fucking like loathsome person Bob Chapek is.
Yeah.
That like the former, head honcho's life just like completely changed colors.
That is so funny.
Yeah. So that's a thing that happened. And then other things. Real quick. Well, I should say two real quick. 'Cause I know like we're just...
It's okay.
So many things have happened. I saw the Todd Field film, Tar, with Cate Blanchett. And this movie is interesting to talk. It's one of my favorite films of the year easily. I watched it just the one time and it immediately catapulted into my top 10 of the year. Let me recap what this film is about based on Letterboxd's description. The film, set in the international world of classical music, centers on Lydia Tarr, widely considered one of the greatest living composers/conductors and first ever female chief conductor of a major German orchestra. This movie is a lot of things. It is a very impeccable character study. It's also kind of a Me Too movie. It has a very, I would say sophisticated lens on a particular debate, all the while presents us, a character who has done some not so great things, but is also able to show us all sides of who this person is, including the humanity within. It is a film that I'm going to go back and watch sometime because there are some things here that you're going to miss the first time. Because there's a lot that's not really, I don't want to say addressed, but it's not like necessarily, they don't dwell on it much because some of those things are there for you to figure out, or I would even say to speculate with like what exactly the details were with the behavior that Lydia Tarr herself engages with as a person that holds such tremendous power in the world of classical music. Cate Blanchett's performance in this is, to say it is sensational would not do it justice. And the filmmaking on display is, I'd say Best Picture nominated material. I don't know if it will get a Best Picture nomination, but Cate Blanchett will get a Best Actress nomination. And it just reminds you again why she is among the most gifted performers of our time, of any time. Any project she's in, she's amazing. And this, oh my God. It is acting. This is acting. Every scene she's in, which is most of the movie. God, that woman is a treasure. She really is. Like, I mean, her performance carries the film, and it has to. It really does. But I'm happy to say this is not just a movie that features a great performance and the rest of it's just kind of like vanilla, standard, or boring. No. Every part of it is interesting. Every part of it is contributing to something that you're not quite sure of while you're watching it, but you're left thinking a lot about the movie after the fact. And that, to me, is the mark of a truly great film. So Tar is definitely one not to be missed and not to be overlooked. And I would say a credible threat in the Best Actress race when it comes to this year's Academy Awards. So that's where we are. Furthermore, as far as the awards race is concerned, not much has changed. Fabelmans still seems to be somewhat of a... It depends on who you ask. Some people are like, it is the official frontrunner. Some people say it is the frontrunner because there's no other alternative. And some people would say it's the underdog / frontrunner because not everybody's thinking it's going to be for sure the winner. We'll see. I think, though, the film has remained to have a sense of momentum. I'm noticing, though, there is a push I think at the moment, if there is a front runner for Best Director, it's looking like a strong possibility that Steven Spielberg might claim his third Academy Award for directing. Maybe because of... And this film that he's made has hit a chord with a lot of people. It's been regarded as like his most personal movie because he calls it semi-autobiographical. It is... These characters are based on his family. And he says, and of course I watched the interviews in the press, and he says that, you know, he was just really bored in the pandemic and he didn't really have much to do. And he kept thinking in I believe it was Tony Kushner, who wrote previous Spielberg films like West Side Story, Lincoln, and Munich. And Tony Kushner had like heard these stories about his childhood, Spielberg's childhood, for years. And Tony was the one that was asking him, okay, well, we have several movies here. Like, we could actually, you know, take this and do something with it. And Spielberg didn't really, like, take that too seriously until the time was right. And he found himself just, like, thinking a lot about, obviously, his childhood life during the pandemic where, you know, a lot of us were maybe doing the exact same thing. And he really, like, you know, Steven is 75, and he only recently lost his parents in the last few years. They both lived until their late 90s, I want to say. And he, quite frankly, missed them. And this project was just his way of bringing them back to life. Mm-hmm. And which is Michelle Williams and Paul Dano. Both of which, well, one of which for sure will get a nomination for sure. Paul Dano, I'm hoping he gets recognized because he's somebody who's been a terrific underdog for years, up and coming rising star for years and years and years. And to say nothing else, in a more, you know, objective academy that wasn't so like entrenched in their stereotypes against certain kind of films, Dano's performance as the Riddler would get some consideration, that's for sure, in the Batman. So I'm just putting that out there. But Fabelmans, it has the right narrative for it. Spielberg, you know, reflecting back on his life, and all the reviews have been pretty good. So it's got that factor where he seems well on his way, at least for that film, to get directing. Picture, I don't think anybody really knows. I feel like the people, from what I'm hearing, the top two is Fabelmans and then Everything Everywhere. I don't think it's impossible for Everything Everywhere to win because Parasite won. And if that can win, maybe so can Everything Everywhere. Mm-hmm. And Ke Huy Quan, I think will most likely win Best Supporting Actor. And I'm always going to pull for Michelle Yeoh, who I feel definitely deserves it, but there's a lot of performers out there, that's for sure. Who knows, right? Anyway, I need to catch my breath a little bit with all of this. Before we get to Wakanda Forever and House of the Dragon, again, in the coming week, oh gosh, I don't even know where we're going to fit Pinocchio, because I just saw Pinocchio. And in the coming week, we're going to see Glass Onion, hopefully Fabelmans, and maybe some other ones like Strange World by Disney.
There's a new Christmas Story.
I know, right? I saw a trailer for that. Like, really? Huh. Again, so much content out there. Before we go to Wakanda Forever, I want to say, I also saw, just a few hours ago of this recording, Guillermo del Toro's Pinocchio movie. And Alexis will see it this weekend with David. I want to say that it is, without question, one of the most beautiful pieces of art I've ever seen in my life. And I don't think there ever has been, nor do I think there ever will be, a more, in my view, definitive adaptation of the story. In all of the years that the Pinocchio story has been out there, I don't think anybody has been able to tap fully into what work of beauty and the lessons that are in that story. Like, Del Toro's interpretation, I think, will be without question definitive. And It's not so much Pinocchio learning lessons in this movie, it's Geppetto learning lessons in this movie. And it's very much a movie about, not needing people to change who they are to love them. It's about you learning to love them for who they are. It's about fathers and sons. And I only just saw it the one time. The stuff that's in this movie, I think, are among the most moving pieces of cinema I've ever seen. I think it may already easily be my favorite Del Toro movie. And it's already, I'll just give it away. It's already in my top 3 of the year. And that's me being modest. I didn't want to put it above some other ones just yet, but this is a movie I'm going to be coming back to for the rest of my life. Because there is just so much heart in it that is pure Guillermo del Toro, but it is, I think, a film that I think will necessitate revisiting for the rest of one's days. The ending is so powerful. The whole film is so powerful, and it is so honest and raw in a way that no one else could make this story. And similarly to Spielberg and, making the movie that he made right now for his parents, the title card at the end of the film was For Mom and Dad by Del Toro. So the performances are incredible. There are some songs actually in the movie that are actually, really moving. The stop motion animation, just see that on the big screen. It's just like, wow, this looks amazing. And it's like, it doesn't divert entirely from like what the Pinocchio story to be, but every beat that's being hit and this reinterpretation of the story with the heart and also the kind of like creepiness, the style of Del Toro is honestly kind of perfect. So, and I would say I'm being modest. This is just for an initial viewing. I'm sure when I see it again on Netflix, Christmas time, mark your calendars or go see it in theaters right now. I would urge you to. This is a movie not to be missed. This is a movie that's straight to the heart of who Guillermo del Toro is as a person. And for the same way that Hugo is for Martin Scorsese, I would say this Pinocchio is for Guillermo del Toro. Go see it. It is honestly, in a year full of amazing films, something special. And fuck, it is well deserving of a Best Picture nomination. It better fucking win Best Animated Feature. That's all I'm saying. So, anywho, you're seeing it, Alexis, this weekend. Are you excited?
Tomorrow at 2 p.m. I'm so excited.
Yeah. Again, like, it's the story of Pinocchio. So a lot of the stuff is going to be like, you know how Kyle is. Even at some point, he was like singing "Hi Diddly Dee," whatever. Like, it's literally like you know the movie, you know the story. But man, I feel pretty confident you'll walk away agreeing like this is the definitive version of the story. And you don't even like the story.
I don't like the
Pinocchio.
story. I'm so just like everything that I've heard about it, all of like the things that were added onto it. Or even the changes. I don't know. It just it looks so interesting and so
up your alley.
Yes.
I can't believe I had I can't believe I had the pleasure of watching this in the theater. Like, I was even telling Peter as we were walking in, like, I feel like I'm being punked. Like, we're about to walk in, I'm gonna play the Disney Plus version.
Did they like it?
Oh yeah. Yeah. Obviously. Anyway, shall we go on to one of our other big reviews of this week, and that would be for this is going to be an interesting one. Black Panther: Wakanda Forever, directed by Ryan Coogler. Supposedly, this is marks the end of Marvel Studios Phase 4, which I would argue, who cares? Who gives a shit? Not about like Phase 4. Well, I guess I don't know about that. That's a whole different conversation. But who cares if this movie like ends up being the finale? It's not a finale to anything. It's just the last movie of a damn slate. So stupid people like think that's anything meaningful to say, like whatever. Anyway. Here's the description by Letterboxd. Queen Ramonda, Shuri, M'Baku, Okoye, and the Dora Milaje fight to protect their nation from intervening world powers in the wake of King T'Challa's death. As the Wakandans strive to embrace their next chapter, the heroes must band together with the help of War Dog Nakia and Everett Ross and forge a new path for the Kingdom of Wakanda. There's a lot to say about this movie, but there's also a lot to say before the fact.
Yeah.
It is no secret, of course, that this is very much a movie in the shadow of the tragic passing of Chadwick Boseman, who played T'Challa in the film Black Panther, Avengers Infinity War, and Endgame, of course. The first Black Panther cultural phenomenon. And Chadwick Boseman, a beloved figure. And there's a lot that's been said whether or not the decision was right to recast. I mean, not recast or do so, but regardless of whether or not you think it was the right choice or not, the choice was made and they moved on, and this is the movie that happened. And I would say in part, this film is very much a tribute to Chadwick Boseman and is very much grieving his loss. And in the moments that it is that, it is very moving. It is very touching. And I felt very much highly respectable to the legacy of Chadwick. Because, of course, all these stars, including Ryan Coogler himself, they were mourning the loss of their friend. Mm-hmm. And to even
while
do
they
this
were
film,
filming, by the way.
Yes, yeah. Well, while he was writing, and even while they were filming, of course, a lot of what this film is a direct result of Chadwick Boseman no longer being with us. That being said, I don't know. Ryan Coogler said in an interview that his original plan for Black Panther 2 was T'Challa after coming back from being snapped or whatever. I don't know how interesting of a premise that sounds to me, but anyway.
That's like literally all the movies that we've seen from Marvel since Thanos.
Yeah, so that doesn't particularly interest me there. However, here we are with this. One other thing that needs to be said about this. In a similar vein as to how all of us here at Red Spotlight adore Rian Johnson's movie The Last Jedi in the Star Wars universe, where there seems to be, a loud group of naysayers who have unfortunately tarnished the reputation of that film. We have a lot of hot takes here, it seems like, in direct opposition to a lot of, popular opinion. While we all agree that Black Panther was a culturally significant film, particularly for African Americans at that time, powerfully moving to have a film be so successful and to see a community represented in that way was such a beautiful thing to see. That alone was worth its existence. And of course, it reminds all of us of the power of representation and why ultimately it is important. And so it's so sad to see that just a few years later, literally any movie that has the slightest bit of representation is immediately engulfed in this crusade by the alt-right fundamentalists with this bullshit and phony war of wokeism or whatever, and it's just, that's all just a guise to mask their self-hatred and their hatred of others. All of which is to say, I don't think any of us here at Spotlight particularly care for Black Panther as a film. It's important to get all that stuff out of the way with first, because I don't want to be accused of anything, unflattering. But it was a weird thing. Maybe Peter's the only one that didn't ever like this, but I remember
the first time I watched it, I thought it was pretty good, and then rewatching it, it just, I think we were excited about it, and
all
that kind of influenced the way that we initially felt. And then when we actually sat down and watched the movie as a movie, everything changed.
And it seems like we're the only ones who I think felt that way, because I feel like a lot of the reviews for Wakanda Forever were kind of all the same, where it's good, but it can't be as good as the first one.
Yeah.
And a lot of the reviews are like, Black Panther was such a crowning achievement. And I think to myself, it really, I don't think Black Panther's a bad movie. I just think it's
mid.
Yes, in a lot of ways.
It has great moments.
Yes, for sure.
And it does have great characters, and the idea was there. I just don't think that it reached the potential that it could have.
No, I don't think it did so. I feel like with the film.
And I do feel the same way about this one.
I look, we're going to get into Wakanda Forever in a minute, right? I want to be clear. I think the first film had moments of great spectacle. Sure. I just I still don't think we've, because of, how people are still saying, the first film was so groundbreaking. Maybe for representation, I can grant you that, but for anything else, I don't know what you're talking about, because the set pieces and the visual effects have aged horribly.
It's so bad.
That third act set piece is
horrible.
Ugly, horrible. Really, really, I think it's among the worst looking Marvel third act set pieces in 30 movies now. And that's saying something, by the way. That's definitely saying something. And, T'Challa, I'm so happy that T'Challa as a character was able to connect with so many audiences, particularly with young black men. I think one of the bigger problems of Black Panther as a movie is, to me, he's far and away the least interesting character, and he's the main character. But that's the same syndrome, I would say, that other Marvel films share, where they have far more interesting side characters than the center here. And I was far more interested in anybody else beside T'Challa in that film.
Yeah.
Why? I don't know. I mean, the costumes were great. The ensemble was, interesting and engaging, but at its core bones, the first movie is still just a Marvel movie.
There's a reason why they keep bringing back I can't pronounce it. His warriors.
Oh, the Dora Milaje?
Yeah. There's a reason why they keep coming back, even when he's not there. And this is when he was there.
One underappreciated aspect that perhaps we ourselves never really, gave enough credit to Black Panther is, as you mentioned, the Dora Milaje. The sheer representation of the power of black women in particular is something that they should, definitely be commended for. And it definitely carries over to this, the sequel where it's far more. Look, I want to say
front and center.
It's front and center, and isn't it amazing?
Yeah.
It's amazing.
It's so good.
How it's so like female centric, and guess what? It's amazing.
It is.
You know, in its representation, but it's also how it's handled. And it's like, hey, doesn't that just show you that all of the crap, all of the toxicity coming at our direction from the alt-right is just full of shit to begin with? Because like their whole ideology is built, even though they want to say it, oh, it's women and they can't carry a story. Yeah, no, that's not true. It never has been. They wish it were, but it's not the case because we have films like this. Also, I don't know if you've seen The Woman King, which also got attacked for being more women than men in the movie, which that's what we've been reduced to these days. It's like we have films like that are far more female centric and they get attacked because they dare to like. There's this theory of school out there from a lot of these like idiots that think that because they're like propping up women, they're tearing down men. What? Yeah. Anyway, I just wanted to get all those feelings of the first Black Panther. Also, one of the things, again, that we singularly seem to be like obsessed with in a way, and Andor, I think, has proven us correct, how fucking underappreciated and underrated Andy Serkis has been as an actor, first and foremost, the entirety of his career. He's not just the motion capture guy, he's a phenomenal actor. And he was one of the most entertaining, if not the most entertaining parts of Black Panther, and the fact that he was killed off like that was so stupid. Because can you imagine if Andy Serkis's Claw became a reoccurring villain in the Marvel universe? He would be a Thunderbolt right now. And wouldn't that be fun? Wasted potential, wasted opportunity, and I'm never going to forgive that.
Instead, we have the FBI guy.
Oh. And Julia Louis-Dreyfus.
Oh, yes.
Okay. Of course, people who are listening should expect some spoilers, but we should, talk about our initial reactions to the film. I could go first real quick and say that, I never expected much from a sequel of this movie because of how, little I cared for the original movie. But then again, when that trailer came out, I was like blown away with like, wow, okay. It was an amazing trailer. And I'm like, wow, this actually looks like a movie, less than the Marvel TV show. Okay, maybe we got something here. And what we ended up getting, I thought was far superior to the first film in a variety of different ways. I would say I very much enjoyed my time watching this movie. I honestly did. And I think overall, I liked the film. However, there are things here and there that are noticeable. They're noticeably present, and they shouldn't be, because they shouldn't be there at all in this film. That kind of feels a bit extra, if we're going to be real with you. It does have this feeling of some things here and there that don't need to be in the story. But as a loving tribute to Chadwick Boseman, it was pretty much pitch perfect in that regard. It'd be hard to complain about that. But I would say, in addition to any of that, as a general thing, what I noticed was a significant improvement from the first film was just technically in its effects work. Wow, what a big step up. Because we just mentioned like the third act of Black Panther was just straight up trash and ugly. And I feel like the effects work on this movie, so good. Like, wow. To a different degree here. And in particular, I was riveted by the third act. And, you know, lately, the third act of Marvel films haven't really been, like, doing it all that much for me or all that great, with the exception of Eternals, you know, which we just hit the 1 year anniversary, by the way, of the movie. I know it's been already a year. Again, another film that we love and everybody else hates. Anyway, have you noticed how that's a theme lately?
Just forever.
I know, right?
That's our thing.
But that's our thing, yeah. But I thought the action was really, really good. The third act was great, but wow, there's this sequence where we're first introduced to these underwater people. Wow, kind of like a horror movie in a way. And especially with how the movie is directed. You notice the direction. You notice the shots. The soundtrack is sublime.
Jesus.
The soundtrack. Even Ludwig Göransson's score stepped it up a notch here. I mean, and again, we're just checking off the boxes here. The craft work is impeccable. The costumes. Oh my God, the costumes are great. Of course they are. And it also doesn't look like every other Marvel movie. The cinematography is much more made like, you know, supposed to be like a movie. So again, these are all technical aspects that are a significant, you know, higher quality, not just to the first movie, but to most recent Marvel films. And as somebody who has been bitching about all of those different things for a while now, I have to commend them when they produce something like this. And it's like, see, all of your movies should look like this. All of your movies should strive to be this good in these areas, but you just don't. Because you make too many of them, first of all, and you make them too quickly. But what I would think is the secret sauce here is I'm willing to bet money that Kevin Feige, even though some of the negatives I'm still going to blame on him, because there are some things, as I mentioned, shouldn't be in the story. But overall, I think he kind of like took a mostly hands-off approach with Ryan Coogler in this movie, because this is a very personal thing for Ryan Coogler to write. Then he lost his friend, obviously, in Chadwick Boseman. So this is, again, more proof of what happens when Kevin Feige just takes a couple steps away from the overall story here. Of course, he can't help himself, and some things are in here that shouldn't be. Anyway, that's that. What I would also say is a significant improvement from the first film and from most Marvel films is that, yes, all those things, yes. But the performances, and sometimes, you know, in a lot of Marvel films, you don't notice performances in this way because it's not so much for the flash or the pizzazz. It's more so for that the characters here are given time to breathe, are given scenes that you would see in, you know, more adult dramatic movies that are not so prioritized with action. The action here is great, but it's not all consuming. It's not the main priority. And we got a lot of great sequences and scenes with characters just sitting down and talking and getting, you know, chances, and then also big dramatic chops too. Like, I feel like I was impressed with a lot of actors here, but I did not know Letitia Wright had this in her. She had a lot to carry in this movie, and she didn't have to do it all on her own, but she had a lot to carry. I mean, she's the main character in this film, and this, I would say, movie made me a bigger fan of the Shuri character, but I wasn't aware Letitia Wright had this kind of performance in her. I really wasn't. And you know what? To you know, not just stop there, but two other ones that I think stood out in this film. Denai Guerrera. Oh my God, Denai Guerrera as Okoye. And of course, the amazing Angela Bassett as Queen Ramonda. I mean, there was that moment in that trailer, but she had several amazing moments in here. And I feel like, look, one thing I neglected to mention earlier in the podcast when I was discussing like Academy nominations. There used to be a time where the Academy would nominate noteworthy performances from big blockbuster films. Like Johnny Depp was nominated for Jack Sparrow for Best Actor one year. In 2003, I believe, for the first Pirates movie. Also, Sigourney Weaver. Thank you, Finding Dory, for reminding me. I cannot believe I had to rely on Finding Dory to remember her name. I'm sorry. Sigourney Weaver was nominated for Best Actress for Aliens, for playing the character of Ripley. There used to be a time where they would do that, and at this moment, there is serious consideration for Tom Cruise getting nominated for Top Gun Maverick, and I would not be mad at that. I really wouldn't be. Not to say that it's among the better performances, but I think it's a
nomination is okay.
Yeah, I think a nomination is definitely due. I don't Johnny Depp didn't win, but a nomination I think at least gives recognition to those kind of movies where there hardly isn't any, particularly in the acting categories. And I'm saying this right now, I would not be angry if Angela Bassett was considered, if not nominated, for Best Supporting Actress for Wakanda Forever. Because look, in Marvel films, a lot of these actors do not get the opportunity to really shine, really flex their acting muscles. But not just with Angela Bassett, but I would also say with Letitia Wright, with Denai Guerrera, with Lupita Nyong'o, and so many of the other ones. They were given the space to actually fucking act in this movie, and I would say it is a lesson for Marvel Studios to allow for more of that in their films going forward. Maybe they felt it was more necessary for this one because of the circumstances surrounding Chadwick Boseman's passing that they allowed Ryan Coogler to make a much more somber movie. That being the other thing about this film is that it's not a triumphant movie. It's a very somber film. This is not the film. People are not going to walk away from this film just being amped up the way that, when they first saw the original Black Panther movie. And I think maybe if we're being serious, deep down, I want to say that's what's causing some people to not be as enthusiastic about this sequel as opposed to the first one, which it is what it is. But in those areas that I mentioned, there were significant improvements, and I don't think we should just dismiss that. And I think what we have there is a blueprint for what I feel Marvel Studios should use going forward. This is what you can do with your characters and with your actors if you give them the opportunity to do that. Because I was shook by Denai, by Letitia, by Angela, by Lupita. They brought their A game. They brought some of their best performances ever, honestly. And that was great. Most of my negatives, I feel, are with the characters Riri Williams, Everett Ross, and Julia Louis-Dreyfus. I don't know who, Val, I guess. There was, I would say, obvious fat that should have been trimmed with the film. Not that it's a long movie and you feel its length, but there are some things here revolving those characters that if you removed, I don't think you would lose anything really important. But the thing is, those characters take up a lot of space. Initially, that's where I'm at with it. And while still, I wouldn't say a film that I adore, I appreciate so much, and I, at the moment, would say prefer to that of the original Black Panther movie. And I might get crucified for saying this, but as far as Marvel is concerned, I would still say, even though people swear it's dog shit, I love Thor: Love and Thunder. That to me is the heart of what a superhero film is, to me anyway. And so I still gravitate to Thor: Love and Thunder as the movie Marvel's done this year. By the way, which also has its flaws. And go back and look at our review. And that film, unfortunately, suffered from the lack of care that Marvel puts into their craft. Whereas Wakanda Forever doesn't lack in any of that. But still, there is something lacking for me here where I can't all the way, connect completely with it. I don't know if I can point to what it is, but that's where I'm at. Alexis.
I agree with everything you said. I like it a lot better than I do the first one. I think that the way that they dealt with all the issues that they had going into the movie, I think were dealt with really well.
As good as they could be under the circumstances.
And yeah, I agree that the Shuri character was a huge surprise. I feel like, a lot of people came out liking Shuri from the first one. And it's so interesting to see. I love when characters are not perfect. And have to deal with real life situations. And I think that the way that they dealt with her character in the movie was so well done also. And it was really, really good. Yes, the Marvel in the movie definitely made the movie less, I don't know, it just felt...
lesser?
Yeah, it felt so unnecessary. And I think that it is a really long movie, but it introduced a lot of new things, mainly with the villain, and I think that we didn't need to have those added on characters. It could have been a shorter movie, but we still wanted to see more, and I think it's because of the villain. They should have done more with him. Yeah. Well, not with him, but just the people in this new world that we got introduced to. You know, that's what people are taking away from the movie too, at least from what I've seen, is this new world, and we just don't get to see much of it. And the things that we do see from it are so good. So good. But yeah, we didn't need literally no point for that guy to be in it. Literally no point.
Martin Freeman?
Yes.
I love Martin Freeman.
I do too.
But as an actor, there's no point to be here at all. It makes you wonder. And by the way, for those of you who are listening here, just again, be aware that we're now in a territory where we might go into some spoilers here. But, I enjoyed Everett Ross in the first movie. Maybe because I enjoy Martin Freeman. But let's face it, again, the MCU has so many characters that we go years without ever seeing them. And then we're back here, and then they always find something devoid of meaning for them to be a part of in sequels. And it's just, okay. Yeah. I don't know. No. It feels like all the stuff that Everett Ross is involved with, and subsequently it involves with another character that's been popping up quite recently in, Marvel projects left and right. The biggest eye roll of the movie was when fucking Julia Louis-Dreyfus showed up on screen, and I'm like, oh my fucking... Kyle was laughing at me because he realized how frustrated I was, but really?
Yeah.
It's what the fuck, man? And it's just it's not so... I don't hate Julia Louis-Dreyfus. She's incredible. I don't know if you've ever seen the show Veep on HBO, but holy shit, is she fucking amazing. And she deserved every one of those Emmys that she won for that. But her character in this MCU has been practically non-existent. And she's always there to just tease what's next. And I'm just tired of that.
This was a movie that did need a end credit scene, or it didn't need it, but they could have just been there. You know what I mean?
Sure. They could have just been there if they wanted it to, but at the same time, it's even worse because now you're intruding on the actual story of the movie here. And with Julia Louis-Dreyfus's character, she's there to set up Thunderbolts.
Yeah.
That's her entire thing in anything that she's been a part of in the MCU. And then with Everett Ross, like, he's supposed to be in Secret Invasion, the Disney Plus series coming, I believe, February, March, maybe, of 23. And, okay, that just makes it worse. So is the reason they're both in this movie to set up both Secret Invasion and Thunderbolts? And it's like, do you see why we're tired of this? Because this movie didn't call for other, this is the thing with Kevin Feige and the thing with Marvel fans, they need to understand. Not every single project has to tease what's coming next. And it's gotten to the point where whenever Marvel does something in their stories that is seemingly motivated exclusively to set something else up, it comes at the direct detriment of the quality of the film and the story. It's just happening all the time now. Like we just mentioned, like their presence or the revelation that they used to be a couple or married adds nothing to the story or the characters at hand. Yeah. In fact, and every time they come back on screen, you're just waiting for it to get off of them and go back to the characters you're actually here to see. Yeah. That's the one that's the most glaring one. It's just like, when you go back and think about it, like, why did we spend so much time on them? Mm-hmm. Oh, Thunderbolts. Oh, Secret Invasion. Oh, Marvel. Yeah. Oh, yeah, that's Kevin Feige. That's entirely Kevin Feige. Yeah.
And then, Ironheart, she was a cool character. I don't think that she needed to be in the movie this long. Yeah. And I think that something that they do with her character, I don't really like it. The scene was great. It was so great to see, but I think that if they would have tweaked it a little bit, I would have liked it more, but she really did not need to be that much in the movie.
She has a lot of screen time for just basically being a piece of furniture.
Yeah, and then they make her be part of this big thing.
In the third act battle, right?
And it doesn't... No, I'm talking about before that. I just feel like it was set up really weird, and I don't know. It was weird to me. We have to.
There are a lot of things about her presence that just kind of like don't mesh that well in this movie. While I want to say Dominique Thorne, who played Riri Williams, made quite the impression, and I'm not gonna lie, because she was so good as a performer anyway, it makes me more interested. I wasn't at all, but it makes me somewhat interested to see her show. Yeah. We'll see how it is, right? But you're right. I don't think she needed to be in the movie as much as she did. She's basically a MacGuffin because, people are trying to kill her, or the Wakandas want to save her, whatever. So she's like a living human. She's just there, basically. Yeah. And then I'm a little bit troubled by what it suggests. And I'm a little bit unclear with what she introduces to the world of the Wakandans and certain directions that are taken with certain characters. I'm just like...
Should we just start talking about it? Because I think we're...
No, we are, but I want to start off with this because we are talking about this, right? So but with her, Ironheart, Iron Man. I don't know if you felt a reaction like this, but it just felt a bit uncomfortable in a way to mesh the Iron Man stuff into the Wakandan technology. And it made the Wakandans feel a little less special to me. What I want to get into with you right now quickly, because I wasn't really clear. So is Okoye an Iron Man now? Or...
Oh, because of her suit?
Yes.
Oh.
What the whole idea of there being suits, like, you know, that are kind of a little bit like Iron Man, or in Ironheart's case, a lot like Iron Man. I don't know how that makes me feel.
It's kind of like a Black Panther suit. That's the way that I saw her thing. First of all, that suit was ugly. It was so ugly. No.
Okoye's,
yes.
right?
It was so ugly.
I can't. Yeah, it was hard to look at. It was a little
jarring to look at, but whatever. I see it as like a Black Panther type of suit, rather than an Iron Man suit.
Right, but maybe I'm just like harping on Riri Williams.
Yeah, well, it was a little strange that they didn't really introduce that it was. She, like, gets inspired by him, I assume. I don't really know her story. I'm just assuming here.
I don't even remember that.
Really explain that.
It just kind of came out of nowhere, right?
Yeah. Maybe in her show.
Yeah, I guess, right. Yeah, that was just something that I was lingering on my mind. But yeah. Where do you want to start?
That opening scene.
Oh, yes. Yes. It's hard to just like, how do you start this movie? Knowing that you have to establish that the main character from the previous one is dead now. I would say the principal arc here for Shuri was the right one. Yeah. Her and what the film has to say about grief, and even though it does feel like, as Peter said, Black Panther Wakanda Forever is basically like reusing the very same themes that some previous Black Panther stories have used. For example, with Shuri, her arc in this movie is T'Challa's arc in Civil War. And also Namor's arc in this film is Killmonger's arc in the first Black Panther. So it is very noticeable how we've seen these themes before, and we've seen these themes with previous Black Panther stories before. But I still think overall, with what the story is and for what the overall themes of the movie are, I think they were right to go in that direction with both of those. I thought it was executed reasonably well. But yes, the opening of the film is, it sets you up for what this movie ultimately is, right? This is not no, it's not a barn burner, a soaring movie. It's very, there's another element in this movie that's very unlike Marvel movies in general. The overall tone is it's very serious. It's a very personally, emotionally, and serious movie. And the beginning just sets you up for that. And I would say, I wasn't necessarily expecting it to make me feel this way, but it did. It just made me relive what it felt like when we found out the news that Chadwick was gone. And it just felt so unfair. And it felt so wrong. And yeah, this was a hard film to make in general with all of the circumstances, but just like how to open this movie. I think that they with the opening in particular, I think they did the best they could with that one. So there's that. Can we talk about Queen Ramonda here? Because immediately after we get the sequence with in the opening, and of course, she becomes queen, or I guess she becomes the leader of Wakanda. She was already queen, I guess, after the passing of T'Challa. The intercutting was brilliant, but wow, what an amazing sequence where you have Queen Ramonda at, I guess, a summit or the UN or whatever. And, you know, she's, you know, she walks in with, you know, her guards and, you know, she's being criticized and attacked by two other nations there because, you know, they've kind of, in a way, reneged on their promise to share resources, in namely with the vibranium. And of course, we know what their agenda is. They want to use vibranium for weapons of mass destruction or whatever. That's just what their MO is. That's the military-industrial complex for you, right? So it comes as no surprise that while that's happening, while they're criticizing her, they've set forth top secret operations to rob them, you know, blind. But little did they know, they had some terrific security in the name of the Dora Milaje, and the intercutting back and forth between that, you know, that room and, you know, the people being captured and stopped from robbing the vibranium. Powerful scene. And I think that's one of the best moments that particularly Queen Ramonda has in the movie. It was great stuff. Just like, ooh, she got you good.
Yeah.
She was like, fuck you, you robbed us. By the way, here are your people back. And it feels so good because we don't see that in real life. And we should see that more in real life, where the sheer bullshit of a lot of the corporate hacks and, you know, warmongers that make millions of dollars a year for promoting, you know, nefariousness in general around the world and promoting more Cold War era mentalities. Those kind of people should be put in their place more often than they are. And they never really are to begin with. And so it just felt so good. And you notice an overall theme with the movie, and you have to wonder, because a lot of, and there's been some video essays, I don't know if you've noticed, Alexis, there's been some video essays out there about how a lot of Hollywood films and even a lot of Marvel movies seemingly, you know, have this pro-military industrial complex mentality onto it. This film is very openly anti-imperialist. In a way that's amazing. And I think that this movie incorporates those themes and its political messages in a much more proficient manner than whatever politics there were in the first film, which I still think were quite muddled.
Yeah.
With whatever that was trying to be.
That was another thing that I was going to say in the beginning, that I think that the message that the villain was trying to convey was a lot better, which is the same one as the first one.
Killmonger, yes.
Was a lot better.
Hey, second time's the charm, apparently.
And I was actually talking to David about it, because I'm like, what does that say? Because, like, we were just having a conversation, and I don't know. I don't know if it was just like the way that it was done with him, but I felt like Namor had more clarity on what he was trying to do and what he was trying to achieve, rather than Killmonger, because it just felt like Killmonger was just angry. Not for no reason, but it felt like for no reason. You know what I mean? And I don't know if that sounds so bad, because it obviously, like, is it for no reason? But just the way that it was shown in the movie, the first one, was strange. And here, you see why. You know what? Like, you see him experiencing why he thinks the way the world works is not okay.
Yeah, it seemed like in the first movie, it was a lot more esoteric. You didn't see a lot of what Killmonger's journey actually was. I think it's a lot of inferred. You have to really infer a lot of what he's been through. And I think, like, for if I'm gonna guess, and what I think a lot of people, in many ways, connect with the Killmonger character, and what maybe perhaps the Coogler was, maybe that was his point, was that in his mind, perhaps, and for the minds of many, people, particularly black individuals who themselves have been persecuted or targeted for them being who they are, particularly in America, it seemed to me that Killmonger in some, or maybe in most ways, and his reasons were highly motivated with him just being a black person in America who, first of all, his first home in Wakanda just left him behind. They killed his father. That was bad. But then, of course, he just became another one of those people who was left by the wayside, who was targeted, who was held back just because of who he was. And a lot of black people, a lot of black Americans often, feel like they're living in a country that, quite frankly, doesn't see them as, still to this day, equal citizens under the law, where we have, of course, this, I would say, well-founded resentment against law enforcement, which we all forget, of course, it wasn't taught in the history books, was first created to protect people of a different race from them, particularly. So there's a lot of history there. And that's also really a lot of the reason for why, for those of us who have issues with that character and with that movie, and why we would say that the messaging feels muddled, is because it feels like it was designed, that character and whatever his whole thing was, to be very one size fits all. So much was going on there. In a way, was designed for people to like project what they wanted onto Killmonger instead of like what he was actually saying or what he was about. And that's what happens when you built the character around that. There was just like this general idea, and that's kind of why it is the way that it is.
It didn't feel I don't want to say like authentic, but authentic. Like, it
felt distant for sure, because you can't really be sure like what is you can't glob onto like what's he exactly saying here,
Whereas Namor, he's trying to protect his people, and he is angry because he did see what was going on and how his people were being treated. He's a
lot older too.
Yeah. So I enjoyed his character a lot. And also, as you recently went to Mexico, that's just some, obviously, like, I'm interested in that because it's us.
It is such a rich culture.
Yes.
It is such an interesting culture that is the Mexican culture. It is a marriage of very diametrically opposed groups of people that kind of all blended together. And it's a rich tapestry that's, I would say, as somebody whose origins come from that nation, as in my family comes from that nation, and so I would say a lot of Mexican people, it has so, movies like this really just remind you of like how much potential there is for that culture to be tapped into for a whole bunch of stories, and yet it's not.
Yeah.
It rarely is. I mean, just the idea, like with Namor, he's like one of the only brown characters in the MCU. Like, who else you got there? You got Michael Pena in Ant-Man. You got Salma Hayek in Eternals. Who else can you? I mean, if you want to.
Oh my God, the guy from Star Wars. He black.
Oh, Oscar Isaac. Oscar Isaac, who's Guatemalan, but hey, we can count him too.
But didn't they make him like Egyptian or something?
He's supposed to be Jewish, I think. Also,
Oh.
at least the character is supposed to be anyway Jewish. You can't even do that one right, can you, Marvel? Yeah, that happened also. One of the characters that I think was very like proudly Latina and is also so much like who the person actually is. On Shield, there was this character called Yo-Yo Rodriguez, played by Natalia Cordova Buckley, and she's a big like pro like Mexican culture and also a hard lefty as well.
What's her name?
She played Frida Kahlo.
Gamora's?
Gamora. Oh, I'm not gonna go there. She actually played Frida Kahlo in Coco. Natalia Cordova Buckley.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So her voice is very recognizable. So, and that show did a lot to really like have that character's identity be out and open in all of the series. Her faith and her culture was definitely something that was used in the stories and for the character. But it's not just a Marvel thing, though. It's just kind of like a general thing. Like that kind of representation, I'm still waiting for it. Like I mostly found it in Coco, and Encanto and things like that. That's it, I would say. We still there really isn't that movie.
There's so much to tell there.
Yes,
and it's not happening.
And part of me feels, while I think all the stuff with Namor and his people worked really well with the story of Wakanda Forever. In some ways, I'm a little bit conflicted because I could see a whole Namor movie.
This should have been that Black Adam.
Oh my god. But yeah, for reals though. Like that whole thing could have been its own film.
Yeah, and that's what I'm saying. Like the movie was so long, and it really did not need to be that long. But if you took away the parts that didn't need to be there and added more stuff, it would have been fine.
Yeah, like part of me does feel a bit gypped that we only went to go see the underwater like place just one time. Like in an actual serious way, and I would want more of an exploration to that, you know?
Yeah.
Than what it was.
And him and Shuri's like interactions, connections, fights, anything.
Yes.
So good.
Yeah. It was so good. And you know, part of me was like thinking like, I know this guy is like so many like centuries older, but these two have something of a chemistry going on.
It's a very
there.
like Catwoman, Batman type of thing.
Yeah, that's for sure. Yeah, that's so true. And it made me like, wow, I mean, these two would be like really interesting allies, and you know, sure enough, they are. Took a little trial and tribulation to get there. That's for sure. Stab. I mean, Namor and his people and the film didn't shy away from it. They're the definition of cutthroat.
They were gonna win.
They were winning.
Yeah.
And I mean, how could they not? I mean, they had every advantage. I mean, look, let me just tell you. You can talk about their the way that they presented themselves as a warrior force. Was very scary. First of all, they're from the water, and as you very much can attest, you're very scared of the ocean for a very number of reasons. When they were first introduced, they took out everybody in sight, so and it was so good, and it was so scary.
It was really scary.
And then one of the things that made me go, that made me kind of like chill. What?
No, yeah, I know what you're saying.
Oh, one of the things that just like when they show up out of nowhere, to intercede with Shuri, Okoye, and Riri.
I was thinking of
before of
the
what?
chant.
Oh, I forgot about that. That was creepy. But I was going more on how they used certain creatures in battle. So like they hopped onto the bridge because a whale helped them on there, and it just made me think like, oh, they can fucking like command whales on you. And then further on, when they attack Wakanda, and the city is kind of flooded, one of the things that made me go no was when they are, and you know this, I'm fucking terrified of these creatures. When they just like march up on here on the backs of killer whales, orcas. No. Wave the white flag, we're done.
He said, Shamu, bye.
Nope.
He said, Shamu, kill me now.
He literally wrote up on Shamu, and I'm like, I don't know if people have done their history on orcas. They're psychotic creatures that thrill in murder. And there are clips out there, you go online, that are so like, oh my god. That scared me the most in this movie, was just seeing the damn orcas.
He said, blue people wear Shamu, bye.
I mean, have you ever had that nightmare of like you being pushed in an orca tank?
No. I used to work next to them.
Oh, they were coworkers?
They were my coworkers.
I don't know how you worked at SeaWorld all that time.
I was desperate. But anyways, I forgot what we were talking about.
The sheer force of their people was so overwhelming. I mean, the idea, they brought Wakanda to their knees.
They really did.
They killed the queen.
Yeah.
What the fuck?
Oh, so I guess like
I mean, it doesn't hurt that their leader's a mutant.
Oh my god!
I should have mentioned or led with that.
Stop.
I was when they said the mutant word, I was like, I leaned over to Peter and I told him they forgot to play the theme song, and then he hummed it for me.
I was in real time. I blacked out for like 2 seconds there.
Are you?
Oh my god! Why? Whatever. Listen, we've talked.
It also makes no sense because, like, I'm sorry, but it wasn't Miss Marvel supposed to be the first like introduction into what mutants are, and they're taking this whole different like introductory, and then this comes, and what are you? Yeah. It makes no sense. There's no consistency from what I can see. It doesn't fit together. You can't say at the same time that Miss Marvel's the first mutant.
It's not gonna fit once actual X-Men come in.
Yes. How does X-Men work with
how
all
are
of
they
this?
gonna tell their story if everybody is a mutant? Oh my god. Okay, you know what? We're not gonna talk about this.
You're just like shutting this down. I'm not doing this today. We're not doing this today.
We've talked about it enough. Anyways, I do have 2 complaints about, aside from what we've already said. The thing that I was talking about earlier with Ironheart is I hate that she was in the scene when they were getting attacked and she was with the mom. It should have been Shuri there.
Yeah, you're right.
There was no reason for her to be there.
Yeah.
And it made it weird that they didn't put a little bit of the blame on her. You know what I mean? It felt not like that's not something that would happen. If my mom died trying to save you because you did this thing that you shouldn't have, all anger goes to you.
Right.
You know what I mean? It felt weird. And it was... Yeah.
But more than that, I think it would have been more impactful if Ramonda died saving her daughter than some other person. You know? That and then also it would have given us a truer final moment between Ramonda and Shuri, which
and that moment
I found lacking in the film.
I mean, yes, like obviously, like her mom died, so she's angry. But it would have been more of like in that scene where she becomes Black Panther, and she has that thing with Killmonger. It would have been made a lot more sense. Although, like, I do like that Killmonger was in the scene because it does make sense. But it would have been more impactful, I think, because in this moment she's angry. But if she would have been the one to be in that room with her mom, you know what I mean? It just would have been. It would have felt better. Well, not better, but like I don't know. I think I would have liked it more. Also, I like Shuri in this movie. I do not think that she should have been the new Black Panther.
It's a hard thing, right? Like
I fully believe that her moment was when she made the plant, not when she became Black Panther.
Yeah. It's a lot to parse through because we don't necessarily know that much about Shuri, but what we do know is she's not first and foremost a warrior per se. So for her to take on the mantle that's primarily a warrior and a defender, I would have been okay with what's her name? Okoye? Okoye.
Like, it still would have been a little weird, but I would have preferred her to maybe be
Perhaps, honestly, it would maybe feel more natural in a way, because Okoye is one of the best warriors that's ever lived. Let me just to be real with you. Like, and maybe that would have been... Because she is a true defender of Wakanda.
Her story is that she's always there when she is needed, but she can't, like... Something always goes wrong. That would have been a great, like, Black Panther story.
Right.
You know?
Right.
I just think that, I don't know. It just didn't feel right for Shuri's story. I'm not saying that because she's a woman or whatever. Like, no. I just think that it didn't feel right for her story to end with her being Black Panther. I do fully believe that her making that plat and her making it possible for there to be another Black Panther was her storyline.
Yeah, I guess I'm mixed on that, because I agree with you. There is something in the air about her being the Black Panther and her scenes that doesn't quite connect all the way with me. At the same time, I am curious of the notion of an Okoye Black Panther, and to see and have explored that is interesting to me. That at the same time, I agree that thematically anyway, Killmonger being there and pushing Shuri to what she needs to do for the next few beats in the story makes sense. Where it kind of loses me a little bit is I don't remember Shuri and Killmonger ever sharing a scene together.
That's true.
So it's like
Hey, cousin.
right? Like, it feels a bit hollow to me because those two have no real history or connection that would make me go like, oh shit, they're like together again. They never were. Like, and it just is kind of weird, like how he, after all these years, would be like still thought about when Killmonger was so obviously wrong. And I know at the end of the first film, there were like some things that T'Challa, did to honor Killmonger. Like, I guess that whatever he was doing in Oakland or whatever, but all the same, it just like, because there's just not much connection between, Shuri and Killmonger as characters, it's just hard to get invested in a scene like that, particularly because of how pivotal it's supposed to be. And I would have liked to have seen somewhat of a final moment with Ramonda, her mom, rather than with Killmonger. But I understand the reasons for why it's there and for why people think it works, and it does push the story further along, particularly because Shuri needs to be more amped up and more full of rage before she stops herself, or I guess her mom appears to her briefly from the ancestral plane before she ultimately backs away from executing Namor.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I thought about that.
Yeah.
So Okoye gets fired. That was a rough scene to watch.
Yeah.
Like, really rough. And I felt really bad for her. Although, I understand the queen, though. Because at that point, it's like, are you fucking kidding me? I'm the only one left?
Yeah.
But then it turns out Shuri was the only one left.
Mm-hmm.
Until it wasn't. That mid-credit scene
Oh my god.
was incredible.
Wait, that scene? Where... What's her name? Lupita Nyong'o gets introduced? Whoa. And she's literally like... This movie made me cry so much, by the way. But that scene where she's like... Basically saying, like, I couldn't go. Like, it was too much, kind of. Ugh.
Yeah.
Oh my god. And then, yeah, the end scene. Or no, even when she meets up with Shuri again, and she's like, to the world, he was Black Panther, but to me, he was my T'Challa. Ooh, jeez.
Yeah. I appreciate the role that Nakia got to play in this movie. I think she got a lot more use here than she did in the previous
she
movie.
didn't do anything in the first one.
No, she was just love interest, the character. But that's the truth.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, a lot of people got to step up here. Maybe if there's one that perhaps got somewhat shafted, considering how much of a fan favorite he is M'Baku.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that was my other complaint. I wish that there would have been more pushback for Shuri from everybody else.
On the decision to annihilate Namor?
Yeah.
Mm.
I felt like everybody was just kind of going along with it. And like, I understand, everybody was also mad, but I don't know. It was a little weird.
And Baku tried, but he was like, okay, well, I guess
Yeah,
this.
but it was just like, maybe we shouldn't. And she was like, yes, we are. And he was like, all right.
Yeah, you're right about that. That was just kind of like, huh. Okay.
Yeah.
Very, very interesting. What else? I think that runs the gamut, right?
So it was entertaining. It was pretty good.
Yeah, it was good. It was good. And it's interesting to examine the film, you know? A lot of things here worked that quite frankly shouldn't have. But it still somehow feels just barely lacking in some key areas. That's the it lands in a weird place because overall it's very good. You know, but it just doesn't cross that threshold where I'm in love with it.
Yeah.
You know, that's the thing that's missing here. So, but still overall, I'll take it because it's a considerable improvement from what came before.
Yes.
So, you got to take your wins when you can get them.
Yeah.
So that's our take on Black Panther Wakanda Forever. And as we approach the 3-hour mark, why don't we go ahead and talk about the season finale of House of the Dragon. When we last left you guys, the Greens were spared from overall extinction when the queen that was not, Rhaenys, just like escaped.
That never was.
The queen that never was, yes. The queen that was not. The queen that never was. I'm sorry, it's late into the show. It's late in general. The queen that never was. Yeah. So, initial impressions for the season finale of House of the Dragon. Emotional. Very much so. Powerful. Triumphant in certain areas, certain alliances that were made that were like, yes, we got that one. And then, of course, it ends with just unbridled rage. So basically, any episode of House of the Dragon, as it usually was. Standouts in this episode, I would say, really have to be on...
Emma Darcy.
Rhaenyra, Emma Darcy. Rhaenyra. And the journey we've been with this character for, a whole season now. And, I thought it was a very fitting season finale. It definitely wasn't overtly in any way at all vicious, but of course it does leave us with a massive death. It leaves us with the first shot, shall we say, in this war that was never really in question, but now is assured. And there are, of course, moments that we're going to get into, but if there's a moment, it's that last shot.
Mm-hmm.
It's that last shot as she turns around to face the camera, and I was scared for my life. And I was like, ooh, the last time I've seen this look from a Targaryen, it did not end well.
Oh my god, that's true.
Even the show could not survive that look from that Targaryen. So, yep. Overall, great episode. Phenomenal work. An amazing freshman season of television if there ever was one. This is truly what Game of Thrones is at its best. So, those are my impressions.
Yeah, again, agree. Lots of good moments with everybody. I'm so sad it's over and we have to wait so long for the next one.
Like what, 2 years?
Yes.
That's so
it's
long.
It's so long. But I fully loved everything about this season, about this episode. Yeah, it's so good. So good.
Okay. Well, we start off with a scene that, in real time when I was watching, we start off the episode with a scene between Rhaenyra and her second born son, Lucerys, right?
Yes.
And when I watched it again, I was like, oh, shit, those fuckers. They were telling us the whole time what was going to happen. And it's a really sweet moment. Turns out one of the final moments they would ever have, but it's a really sweet moment between Lucerys and Rhaenyra, where it's like, you know, he's just like, after all the drama that was involved with making sure that he keeps the titles that he, you know, is owed to by birthright, he's just like, maybe I'm not the best person for this, and I basically says that he can't be as perfect as his mother, and such a sweet moment, obviously, that he feels that way about, you know, Rhaenyra, who, as we all know, is far from perfect, and even she herself, it's like, oh, please, you have no idea, but like, that's not something you have to worry about. And it's just like, it's not just a final moment for them together, but it's just like, it's the final moments before they get a lot of really bad news. And like a lot of really bad news. First of all, I'm sorry, maybe I was distracted, and I rightfully so, because it was the best episode of the season, when the last Viserys episode we had, which was episode 8, I want to say. It didn't occur to me that she had been pregnant. Like, the whole time. I don't know what it was, but I just didn't notice. So, she's pregnant here. And they're told immediately as Rhaenys lands. And fuck, man, Rhaenys did not sugarcoat anything. She's like, Viserys is dead. That's the first thing that she says. Viserys is dead. Which, I mean, and you see, and your heart breaks when you see, of course, the solemn looks for both Daemon, but especially with Rhaenyra, because, of course, she loved her father. Those two had such a close relationship, and that would be very sad to hear. But she's not even able to process that, because immediately Rhaenys is like, yeah, also, this other thing happened where you were kind of supplanted, and Alicent and all the other Greens crowned Aegon as king. And when that happened, immediately, like, within Rhaenyra, something within herself is obviously hurting, like something, you know, was kicking or something. And I don't know what it is, but it was just the onslaught of all of those, like, really, really depressing emotions. It's almost as if like the baby died in that moment, because she's just like grieving a lot. And that basically is what causes her to go into premature labor, right? It's just like all of that news. It was too much. And then it ends up being even more degrees of too much as she's going into labor for a baby that would never be alive. And that, we've seen some gross stuff on the show, but her pushing that lifeless body out of her and then just like on the floor, and yeah, that was an intense moment. I know a lot of people have issues with that moment, saying that they should have put like a trigger warning. I think that they should have. I don't know, because I can see people looking at that or seeing that and, you know, having some big feelings about it. But it was it was an interesting scene, because obviously it's a very sad scene. Yes.
And then you have her, while she's literally in so much pain, yelling out for Daemon, and Daemon is nowhere to be seen except in the painted table.
Plotting the war.
But it's also like depressing for her. I mean, again, everything is so bad in this moment, but also like the fact that this is like her moment. This is the moment that she's been waiting for to be head of the table, and she can't be there.
She can't be there. She's forced to be somewhere else because she has to, this child that she... And all the while, there's this looming danger that they could be under attack at any moment. So it's just like the whole thing's just like gone to shit completely in a matter of seconds.
Mm-hmm.
It's terrible.
Yeah.
It really is. And we get some interesting exchanges between Damon and Jaehaerys. Right? It's Jaehaerys. And showing him what it means to be loyal. He like scares the crap out of their guards with like his dragon. Very fucking intimidating, obviously. But it also is just like who Damon is. Like he just immediately like goes into motion, which in a certain sense they do need to do that because they don't know. I mean, the Greens have a dragon. They could come rolling up to them if they wanted to.
3 dragons.
They have 3 dragons, right? So if they wanted to, they could have just immediately like rolled up. Yes, as we saw, they have the dragon, and it's like if they're not careful, like I mean, I was kind of scared. Like maybe they should have considered evacuating, because there's a lot of firepower that's against them, and if the Greens, if Alicent wasn't there, they might not have had the opportunity that they've had this episode to kind of like group their forces. And in some ways you do have to wonder because it seemed like because of what happened with the coronation and the usurped of the throne, you got the impression, because most of the episode was just them planning the war out, gathering their allies, and in some ways, you get like I don't know if this is like a criticism of the show. I don't think it is. It's just like, looking at it realistically speaking, you guys didn't already have this thing mapped out, because like Otto did, unbeknownst to Alicent, who it's been revealed she wasn't anywhere near as gung-ho as Otto was with like how far they wanted to take the anti-Rhaenyra campaign. However, you would think Daemon would be preparing more so than what was revealed, which was, oh, they actually fucking did it. In which case they immediately start, gathering resources and allies, but they're really lucky things fell in their lap the way that it did in these crucial moments in this episode, because it's not that great of a position to be at with what's, obviously opposed to them. And then what was also just, what they shouldn't have allowed it to happen was was really a mark against them is that they fucking crowned Aegon by the High Septon in front of King's Landing. That was clever on Alicent's part to really legitimize Aegon. And that's something that they're going to have to compete against. And, but how young Lucerys was, told in one of his final moments, Rhaenyra and Daemon should have been preparing the business, particularly with like reminding a lot of these houses about their oaths. You should have been reminding them of their oaths every year on the dot, not when it's time to go to fucking war, So it's a lot of maneuvering here, but in hindsight, there's a lot of political savviness that they were seemingly lacking.
Well, I think it was a little bit expected because of the way that Viserys did not train Rhaenyra at all for
That's
this.
the thing, yes.
And
yeah.
that comes into play now.
Well, again, Viserys himself could have and had many opportunities to relieve a lot of these issues. I mean, one of the things he could have done was do an early abdication and then just crown Rhaenyra.
Yeah. And then another thing that comes into play is the fact that Rhaenyra was very naive to think that people would just willingly accept her.
Especially when it was pretty obvious that Otto himself was against her. And again, I'm so surprised. There's some things that happen on this show that we just move the fuck on because so much is happening. But like episodes ago, the idea that Viserys would agree to rehire Otto as his hand, considering that he fired him in the first place because he knew he was plotting against Rhaenyra, and that Rhaenyra would just let that shit slide. It's just like, what the fuck, man? Do you want me to be your heir or not? Why is this guy back in charge when we both were in agreement he was a danger to me?
Yeah.
But we started an episode with the previous hand being burned alive, and now we have this hand back, and it's not acknowledged at all. Okay. These are just thoughts that come to mind when you're watching this. It's like, hey,
it just makes you. I mean, it's supposed to make you think these things, and you're supposed to think, Viserys made a lot of wrong decisions that led to this point. And there's no one to blame but him.
Yeah.
And let others
there's
to
also
believe
plenty of
they could do
there's
what
plenty
they
of blame
did.
to go around, though. There's plenty of blame to go around. I mean, Alicent herself, to be fair, either she seemed to manipulate herself, or she was easily manipulated by, the other forces around her. The same with Rhaenyra and Daemon not doing enough to prepare for the coming. She had 20 years to prepare. 20 years. But at the same time, like, it was a big show. The king proclaimed Rhaenyra to be her heir. And just the idea, especially on the backs of what appeared to be a reconciliation between the Greens and the Blacks, in the previous interaction they've had, to be so blindsided by the idea that they crowned somebody else instead is so effed up, obviously, right? However, I don't want to skip over some moments. And if I do, we'll go back to them, I promise to you. But there is a lot to be said about her character. Some would argue maybe perhaps in a negative light, but to others, it ended up being the crucial, pivotal quality that ended up, capturing the support of a pretty essential house. And that is when Rhaenyra legitimately considers the proposal that is brought forth to her from both the hand of the king and the Dowager Queen Alicent, which is, if you just swear loyalty to Aegon, you're fine. Nothing will be taken away from you, and there is no need for bloodshed. Now, of course, one could argue, why is there any reason to trust people who have already done this much malevolence toward you? But at the same time, it is a proposition that she doesn't outwardly dismiss, and that is when she remembers, and she says this in the war room, that, her father told her when dragons go to war, nobody wins, or everything burns. I think it's one of the things that she says there, which is true, which is what will happen. And so she's forced with two possibilities: peace or war.
Peace or destruction, basically.
Yes, yeah. And it says a lot about who she is, that she is seriously weighing the options.
And it says a lot about the growth that she's done throughout the years, because you started off with her saying, like, I don't want to do any of this. I just want to eat cake and ride on the back of my dragon.
Yeah.
And now, you know, she's come to understand the importance of what she's doing and the people around her and the people that she needs to take care of. All the while grieving.
Yeah, and it's also a rare moment of a person of power, considering the power. I mean, she's in the line of succession. Rhaenyra is and should be queen. It's so rare for somebody of her stature in the show, in the Game of Thrones universe, shall we say, to really stop for a moment and put her own personal ambitions aside and consider the cost of the realm and consider the cost of the people. And it is such, you know, it reminds you of why people really like Daenerys to begin with, because Daenerys was somebody who, she had a lot of ambition, and she had a big ego, that's for sure, which only got bigger as the show went along. But she, you know, started off as a character that was seen as for more of the people. Then, of course, we end her character arc with, you know, using her dragon to literally burn down. I don't know. It seemed like she killed the whole city.
Yeah.
She like, look, she wasn't even like, that's the thing. She didn't even use her dragon to like kill the Red Keep or Cersei. She was using her dragon to just like exterminate normal citizens. Yeah. The very people who like she was supposed to like be a defender of. Yeah. Which that was a choice. that was a choice for many fucking reasons that was so confounding, but
I want to point that
out.
I think that she knew this about herself. And a lot of it was fear, like her fear of becoming her dad. That she purposely placed people around her that knew were gonna have opinions and were going to stop her from her own, you know, ambitions, I guess.
Or worst impulses.
Yes, and that's, you know, that's good to have that, to realize that about yourself and to be able to accept these things, you know, that. But
yeah, and I don't know what was the change on Game of Thrones in Daenerys where she did that on purpose, but then at the last minute she just seemed gone. To like, oh yeah, that's right, that's right, she got rid of them.
No,
or they were
yeah.
And she probably would have killed Tyrion too. But they were all gone, but then she herself was too far gone.
Yeah.
She wasn't about to just like, yeah. Anyway, not to relitigate too much of Game of Thrones, but with Rhaenyra, I wanted to put that out there. That it's just, it shows a lot about who she is as a person. It also shows that she, again, part of, I would say, the allure of this overall show, House of the Dragon, and our main characters here is that there is humanity within them, and therein lies individuals in the line of succession who are more likable because of moments like these, and you root for them. And yeah, it was nice to see that. And ultimately, as I mentioned or alluded to before the fact, this is something that ends up pushing Rhaenys over to her side. The idea that, you know, she was keeping the realm at hand in spite of all of the personal snubbings that she's had. I want to note back though, there were a couple of, you know, scenes. What was everybody doing outside? Oh yeah, it was a funeral, right? It was a funeral for the baby. Yes. I was like, oh yeah, that happened. everybody was outside for the funeral, and then of course comes who is it? Which one of the twins is it?
It's Arik and Eric. I could not tell you which one it is.
Well, he comes and he presents the crown that her father wore. And oh my God, that was an amazing sequence because, and it's such in high contrast to in the previous episode when Aegon was crowned, where all of it was just so
forced,
fake.
Yeah,
it was fake. It was fake and it was phony. It was an individual who never wanted to be put in that position, and it was all orchestrated by people who are, for the most part, Alicent notwithstanding, lack of virtue, lack of honor, and are just power-hungry animals. Like Alicent's the only one, and I mean, I don't necessarily call, I wouldn't lump her daughter Helena in this group, but mostly she is surrounded by people who are quite odious and loathsome, and she either isn't aware of that or overlooks that with Larys, with Kristen, with her dad, and even her children. It's just like, oh God, all around. And then you put all of that pompous and inauthenticity, rather, with this sequence where she is presented the crown that her father wore, her recently deceased father, and she's crowned for the first time. And the power, and dare I even say the majesty, of all of the people who were there at Dragonstone, just like one by one, bowing for the true born queen, the true heir to the Iron Throne. I just love the contrast between those two different scenes, and ultimately the one that was, far less grand, but far more powerful and far more moving. This is the moment we had been building to for the entirety of this show so far, and it was melancholic, obviously, because it is a moment of majesty, it is a moment of power, but it also comes with it just this sadness that, fuck, we're in it now, and we're in it under the worst of circumstances. I'm doing this,
and it's happening at a funeral.
It's happening at a funeral, but knowing that there will be more funerals to come. Mm-hmm. Because this is something that I have to fight for, because these people believe in me. These people recognize me as the true heir to the Iron Throne here. And now here we go. Here we fucking go. But damn, does she rock that crown.
I know. It's so good.
And her wardrobe, perfect for a queen. And I love how in the next sequence, we're all gathered in the war room, and I love how she's presented for the first time, Queen Rhaenyra Targaryen, Queen of the Andals, or whatever. How the damn it's a long title, but she's presented, and everyone's there, and we get to work basically here. With all the dragons and the allies, and it doesn't look great at first, and Rhaenys is still holding out like, hey, I'm here with you guys, but I'm not really, I haven't declared yet. And then Daemon's not really taking that and just like, in his mind, they're already with us, and then Rhaenys like gives them looks like, what the fuck are you doing here? Like, you don't have my dragon yet. But we're informed that Lord Corlys's fever has broke and is sailing for Dragonstone, as we suspected he would come back into the show. And then those two have a moment. You want to talk about that?
Well, you guys skipped over a lot of things there, sir.
Yes. Keep in mind it's been weeks, so I'm remembering the episode as I'm talking in real time.
Very important part is that scene with Daemon and Rhaenyra when they're having a conversation after they've met with Otto, and Daemon is literally like, are you really considering this?
Oh, that wasn't after?
No. Because it was right before she was crowned.
Oh, okay. Go ahead.
Well, yeah, you have this scene where Damon's literally telling her, like, are you actually considering this? And she kind of explains, like, I have to, like, basically, like, how you said, like, for the people that I need to take care of the realm. And then she brings up the whole Song of Ice and Fire thing. And Damon just loses it.
She fucking loses it. Like, you would think he was about to flip a table or something. Like, basically, like, are you fucking kidding me with this shit?
And I think it's an interesting moment. I know that a lot of people had, like, really big issues with this. Mainly because Damon is, like, a fan favorite. And they kind of set up this relationship with him and Rhaenyra, but I don't know. I felt like it didn't really come out of nowhere. I felt like it made sense. Like, we have not seen good things about Daemon, and the parts that were supposed to be there, they cut out of the show. Yep. So it I don't know. I felt like it made sense. And then we also know that Daemon does not know how to show his emotions, and you know what I mean? Like, he can't control them, and he doesn't like that he can't control them, so he just lashes out. And you get the scene where first you get Rhaenyra, and the way that he sees Rhaenyra at this moment is like, oh great, here's another Viserys, which he obviously didn't agree with him. So that's frustrating. And then you get this thing where basically Viserys is kind of like kicking him in the ass again by only trusting Rhaenyra with this big prophecy. Yeah. And making him realize, like, he actually never considered me as an heir. Like, that's, you know, and this is coming from a person that he admired, that he truly loved, and I think loved even more than Rhaenyra. You know, like, obviously it's not good. And then it's also known that he very much believes in the Targaryen power and the power that they have with dragons. So when you hear, you know, Rhaenyra talking about prophecies and stuff, he's literally like, what the fuck are you talking about? I don't know. It just all made sense to me, and it was interesting. And then Rhaenyra laughing at him like, bitch. So yeah, you have that. And then when Rhaenyra comes to stand in front of the table, I love that moment with Bella and Rhaena. And she's like, come on, guys. So good. I loved it. But yeah, with Rhaenys and Corlys, first you get this moment of Rhaenys being like, bitch, you left me for 6 years.
Yeah.
And it's interesting. I wish we would have gotten more scenes with them. Because the conversation that they have is pretty interesting. Like, obviously they're not in a good place, but they have to be together, and they have to be, you know, thinking the same thing. But in this moment, it's just a little bit difficult. And then you have the scene where Corlys is like, you know, talking shit about Rhaenyra, and Rhaenys has to be like, actually, hold on. But I like that, you know, in that conversation we do get kind of Rhaenys legitimizing Rhaenyra as queen, and validating the decisions that she's making.
Yes.
And it was cool.
No, it was nice to see it was nice to see Rhaenys just like to stand up for Rhaenyra, that's for sure. And to see how the nature between their relationship has evolved, even all the way from the first episode. But then in the next sequence, then we get Lord Corlys' re-entrance, official anyway, into the war room and everything, and the way he kind of like presses at Rhaenyra about like how this is going, it's really interesting. And then of course, big fuck yeah moment where he basically like declares support for her, and has the full support of the Velaryon fleet, and even more so, a crucial development is through his 6 years away at fighting, he's managed to permanently capture the Stepstones, which have always been in the background of this season, but now has come back to prove as a crucial victory here for Rhaenyra, and that way they could cut off like Trey to King's Landing. That is big. That's big fucking like maneuvering politics here. That's gonna hurt the fucking Greens, that's for sure. But a big moment.
Yep. And then I guess before that, we have the naming of all the dragons that we will see in the upcoming seasons, which is very exciting. And then you also get another beginning stages of a claiming of a dragon, which I forgot the name of the dragon, but it's King Jaehaerys' dragon, which is the king before Viserys. So that was pretty cool. That was kind of...
Was it 1 or 2?
It was 1.
Oh, okay. So Daemon claimed the new dragon.
I don't think he claimed them yet, but he's like trying to. Yeah.
But I mean, we need more dragons, that's for sure.
And it's cool to see that because there's a lot of dragon stuff in this episode. We have obviously the intimidation scene with Daemon and Caraxes. And then the birth scene with Rhaenyra and Syrax that they keep going back and forth. And it's like interesting because you get these two scenes that are coming from these two people who are supposed to be like legit Targaryens, fully connecting to their dragon, and then you get this next scene who they're kind of Targaryens and things don't kind of go their way with their own dragons.
They don't, do they? Oh man, that was that happened. I was like, oh shit, that was an oh shit moment.
It was. I knew it was coming. I knew it was gonna happen, but still seeing it, no, it's just like, oh crap, this is bad. And like the anxiety
really
that you get throughout the whole scene. Like, as soon as he say he's leaving, I was like, stop. Please stop.
Yeah, I was kind of bracing myself for it. It felt like, it was toward the end of the episode that it was gearing up for something massive to happen. And then I think to me, the moment I realized this is it was when he landed at the Baratheon place, and then you see Aemon's dragon.
Vhagar.
No. Did I say who's
Aemon?
Aemon?
Yeah.
Oh, the dragon's name's Vhagar. Yeah, and that's okay. I was like, nope, this is not good.
Yeah. It was pretty bad. But he looked so cute walking up in there, and Like, he's so scared. Jeez.
Well, he wasn't scared for that much longer. I mean, let's be real. It's horrific. He was basically eaten alive. With his dragon.
Can I tell you how Rhaenyra and Daemon found out in the books?
Yes, please.
So, Dragonstone is near a cliff. So the way that they found out that the son is dead is because his body, the dragon's body parts, washed up on the shore.
I was gonna ask you, like, how long?
Everything is kind of close, especially on Dragonback. I mean, it's like you're flying a jetpack, kind of. But yeah, they never found the body for obvious reasons.
But they found the remains of the dragon, and they can infer that's bad. And then, of course, we end the season with that look. That's bad for everybody else. Because that's like, well, there's no coming back from this.
No.
This is it.
I'm so curious as to how they're going to handle the reaction from Alicent. And what is Aemon going to say?
Because it was an accident.
Yeah.
It really was. Like, this is not in purpose. But that's not going to make a difference.
Yeah. Crazy.
It's all fun and games.
I know. Until someone gets eaten alive.
Fuck, man. He was eaten alive. Well, I don't even know that's true. Well, I mean, he was, but I mean, the bite would have just killed him immediately.
Yeah.
So it's like, oh. But still, oh my god, that's bad.
Yeah, and that's a scary-ass dragon, too. That scene
he was so young.
When Vhagar is, like, on top of them, and all you see is, like, the silhouette in the clouds.
Yeah.
No, bye.
So when are we coming back? 2 fucking years?
2024.
Wonderful. 2024. Anyway, this is a phenomenal season of television, and this really went above my expectations for what this could be. I love this show. I love these characters, and it sucks that I have to wait 2 years, but I can't wait. That's for sure. I can't wait to come back. Anything else to be said about this episode of this season of House of the Dragon?
No. It was so good.
All right, then. Well, thank you so much for listening today. As a reminder, of course, throughout the next few episodes, we will be discussing the latest with Andor, as well as Disenchanted, Guillermo del Toro's Pinocchio, The Crown, Glass Onion, Strange World, The Fablemans, and so much more. And so much more. Keep it here on Red Spotlight. Every podcast, every single Sunday. Anywhere you listen to podcasts. Until next time, stay under our spotlight, and bye-bye.